It's time for Mac Break Weekly. Andy, Renee, and Alex are all here. We start with a tribute to Steve Jobs. It's the 10th anniversary of his passing. We'll talk about the Apple Watch Series 7 goes on sale on Friday. Should you get it? A few bugs that Apple has fixed in 15.0.1. And the tragedy of Safari's tabs. It's all coming up next on Mac Break Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Mac Break Weekly, episode 786, recorded Tuesday, October 5th, 2021. Can you see my jelly scroll? Mac Break Weekly is brought to you by Our Crowd. Our Crowd helps accredited investors invest early in pre-IPO companies alongside professional venture capitalists. Join the fastest growing venture capital investment community at ourcrowd.com/MacBreak. And by userway.org. Userway ensures your website is accessible, ADA compliant, and helps your business avoid accessibility-related lawsuits. The perfect way to showcase your brand's commitment to millions of people with disabilities. It's not only the right thing to do, it's also the law. Go to userway.org/twit for 30% off Userway's AI-powered accessibility solution. And by ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter's technology finds qualified candidates for your job and invites them to apply. Right now, you could try ZipRecruiter free at ziprecruiter.com/MacBreak. It's time for Mac Break Weekly, the show where we cover the latest Apple news with the team, and they are all present today. Joining us from Canada, Renee Ritchie, youtube.com/Renee Ritchie. Hi, Renee.
Hi, Leo.
Good to see you.
It's cold up here again already. I got like warm beverages and I'm hunkered down.
Yeah, fall hit hard. All of a sudden. We're having fall too.
We went from 30 to 12, something like that.
Yeah, yesterday, the day before it was like in the 90s, and now it's like I had to get my sweaters out. Andy Nacco's also here from the cold part of the country. Hello, Andrew.
Yeah, it's crisp. It's not cold.
Crisp.
It's balmy. We're at that level where it's like, okay, is it worth pulling down all the storm windows and turning on the heaters again?
It's that time.
Or can I put that off for another week? I'm just like, well, actually, I just got this warm little shirt. Maybe I'll just like start wearing this warm little shirt around the house instead of
You're at the interim.
Being a responsible
house. Is it storm window season yet? I don't know. You're at the
don't get me started about the gutters. If you don't get those leaves out by October,
got to check the boiler, make sure you got oil in there.
And then, oh my God!
Oh my God!
I mean, this is the year I become a snowboard. I've had it. I've had it.
Snowboard.
I've had it.
And also Alex Lindsay from 090.media and Office Hours at officehours.com. Hello. We're all on Skype today because Zoom is like barfing. Some global Zoom.
Do they use Facebook app login?
I think they got Facebook's engineers on over there to help work on the network, and
DNS.
Oh my God, it's broken. It's broken. Actually, a lot of the 5-hour Facebook outage yesterday not only brought down Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, but a lot of excess traffic, as Cloudflare talked about it in their blog. People just keep. Well, no, Facebook's not down. It can't be down. And they keep hitting it.
Well, can you imagine, Leo? It's like if you deleted every name from your contact list and no longer knew what was associated with what number, you just start pressing every number to see what it is. And that's what happens to the phone lines.
I wonder how many new routers there were bought.
Oh
like,
yeah,
it can't be Facebook.
Can't be broken.
What a great divide between like the haves and the have-nots. Where in all of Facebook, there were the people that were like, "Yay, it's a snow day! I get to go home and not do anything." And then there were the other people at Facebook like, "Oh crap, this is going to ruin my entire day, my entire week, and my entire month." And I guess I'm not going to see my family this month because we have to fix all of this.
I'm sure it really wasn't. It's something that happens all the time. Unfortunately, BGP router information incorrectly updated. I'm sure Steve Gibson will give us a play-by-play. But what was interesting is they essentially took all of Facebook, including internal networks, off which apparently, according to Brian Krebs, meant that they couldn't use their card keys to get into the into the network center to fix it. We're going, we can't get in. We can't get in.
And WhatsApp is telephony for like 2/3 of the world. So like 2/3 of the world was silent.
Yeah. Really huge deal.
No, I forget her name, but there's a really great tech columnist, a tech reporter at the New York Times who had a really good play-by-play of like being in touch with like people who are at Facebook who are like now, and now there's talks about which doors can be kicked in and which doors are not.
Can you believe
that? All this stuff that it comes down to, I can't get into the office. It's not a question of this really, really complicated. It's like the door is locked and I cannot unlock it now. And that's there's going to be this is why, like, when there were a lot of problems with like launching a vaccination appointment sites state by state, that's why like I was a lot like Massachusetts site was hammered for the first couple of days and unusable, and I had to be really, really sympathetic, saying no, that's not how it's supposed to work. No, a lot of other states work fine, but when you have lots and lots of people trying to interact with the same service at the same time, you can do simulations, you can do the math, you can hire the right people, but you don't know what's going to happen until the thing happens.
Could you hear the scream, Renee, from Georgia Dow's house when her Oculus Rift went down?
Oh, God.
Well, no, because it was tempered by her joy of Facebook being down. Because it was like,
she doesn't like
it was
that.
funny because some of the half the reaction was the internet going, oh, this is peace. This is quiet. There is no doom.
I'm sure it's a coincidence that this happened right after the 60 Minutes whistleblower piece and just before the testimony in front of the Senate today.
How do you stop the Finstas, Leo? How do you stop the
Finstas? Apparently, Facebook's response to Senator Blumenthal was, we stopped the Finstas. We stopped everything.
Stopped everybody.
We'll just turn this whole thing off.
My mind immediately went to the conspiracy theory that Facebook, it was Mark Zuckerberg said, let's just show them what a world without Facebook would be like.
Can you imagine? He gets so angry, he pulls the plug and then jumps in his supersonic hydrofoil, and like Daniel Craig is chasing him across the Atlantic while the Bond thing
There's
plays.
no evidence that that's what happened, but it sure does seem coincidental. You know, the timing is...
I'm going to the volcano lair.
Yeah, it's interesting.
The volcano lair.
Yeah. Anyway, that's not obviously
not right,
an Apple story, but
it's the story of the world. Also, we love dunking on Facebook. When like just it makes us. I feel bad for every employee that I'm legitimately all of their like personal plans and social plans. They can't go to their kids' recitals. They can't do that because this is crisis. And you know that as responsible as you are, you're thinking somebody screwed up big time. I hope it wasn't me. But on the other hand, you're like, oh, please suffer a little bit more. But also, please know that you are not counted amongst God's favored companies on this day. Clearly. Sorry.
How badass is it that they went into the server cage with chainsaws? Like, was it metal grinders or chainsaws or something?
Isn't it?
Like, that's every IT person.
Nobody thought about this. You know, if we really screw up the routing, we won't be able to get in to fix it. That is like your worst nightmare. That's like
it's their dream, Leo. It's every IT nerd's dream.
Yeah, I just want to know who had that conversation where it was like, we can't get in. What do you mean you can't get in? It's locked. Get a chainsaw.
Here's the company credit card. Go to Home Depot.
Why aren't you on the plane?
Exactly. well, again, on Security Now, talk about this, but really the real question, the real technical issue is why is it possible even to do this with BGP? There needs to be something in the protocol that shows you ahead of time what a misrouting is going to do, and prevents you from doing it.
Leo. The key was in the room.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. Oh my God!
It was like that video game.
It happens all the time, by the way. Remember, last year there was an ISP changed its BGP tables and routed all internet traffic through a small town in Maine. I mean, it's just this should not be possible.
Ancient technology, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's ancient technology, and I think people really need to take it more seriously before they change the BGP settings. Yeah. That's kind of nuts.
But
what
also,
could it possibly hurt?
Renee has a point that so much of the infrastructure that the entire internet relies upon was conceived of and locked down back when the internet was a way for boring professors to send boring text documents to each other in a very boring way. It was not set up to be so robust as to recognize what happens when a billion people across the planet all want to get at the same cat picture at the same time.
Yeah. And it's such the load is just so massive, that and there's so much flowing that it's really hard to understand. Like we had another situation where the CDN went under because someone was like putting in power into their house and the backhoe hit one fiber line.
Yeah.
And it's just that
I remember that.
Then it just, there's a chain reaction.
The backhoe cut a fiber line and boom.
Yeah. And it was gone.
Everyone
And it was,
watching
but it was
Squid Game right now on Netflix.
Yeah.
But it was just, what it did is it wasn't the fiber line, of course. It wasn't carrying at all. It's just that it pushed too much pressure in one place, which then pushed too much pressure, which is how you had the great blackout in New York. And,
that's right.
These cascading effects. Yeah. It turned out to be, I don't know if I'm really into connections, and I watched that a couple times. Yes. Turned out to be like one little relay.
Right.
Like one little relay failed, and it took out all of, New York.
There was a kid in New York City who exactly when the power went out had hit a telephone pole with a stick, and for a longest time, he thought that he did it. he thought, I broke the internet. I broke the power. I broke
People set him straight when he was like 40, but then they just
he didn't. They never
left him there 35 years.
Aren't there still like 7 people with the keys to those DNS servers? Like it's such a weird. system.
But that system is really over-engineered to prevent issues. I mean, if you saw the key exchange, it's like a ritual out of an 18th century. Secret society. Practically, they're practically wearing hooded robes. I mean, it is a big. Sometime you should see this.
I would insist on it if I were one of them.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating actually, but that's over-enginered to prevent this kind of thing. But that's not the big story of the week. You know what the big story of the week is? Windows 11 comes out today.
What?
Oh, good luck getting a hold of the news.
Mary?
What? This is the day.
It goes to 11?
It's the strangest thing that Microsoft releases a whole new version of Windows, and the world collectively goes, huh? What?
Well, they got whistleblown. I mean, like they should have had better time. Like how would they have known? I mean, it's just
yesterday
nobody was on Facebook to hear about it.
Yesterday, I logged into. I have my game machine has Windows on it just in case, and I logged in. I log in once a month to update it, and Windows 11. It's like, oh, thanks, great. See you in a couple of hours. No, the big story really for us is and it's actually a sad story, the 10th anniversary of the passing of Steve Jobs. And I think people who are, Apple fans will always remember that day, right?
Yeah, I remember. I don't remember instantly like what day is the anniversary. But as soon as I saw the video on Apple's site, immediately took me back to being in my old studio in my old house, trying to keep it together a little bit because my own parents had just died, both of them of long illnesses, and I remember talking to you and trying to channel part of the love that our little community was putting together about because we don't I had exactly one personal interaction face to face with Steve. I didn't know him. We can't pretend that we had a personal connection to these people, to a lot of these high profile Apple executives, but they're part of the symphony of your life. And so when one piece of one instrument is stilled, it affects the entire piece, and it feels like a moment of transition. So this is the way that the community got together 10 years ago to talk about it in a very, very emotional and honest way. It was still, I think, something that was quite beautiful.
Let's we can. I guess I don't know. Can we play the film?
Yeah, you can.
Will Apple take us down if I play it?
No.
I hope not. This is on apple.com on their website. Let me unmute the sound. Actually, is there sound? There should be sound. There it is. Let me start over. I'll go back a little bit. And I think, is this the Stanford speech they're playing here? Let's see here.
It's a medley of speeches.
When you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and your life is just to live your life inside the world, try not to bash into the walls too much. But life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it. You can influence it. You can build your own things that other people can use.
Good evening. I'm Steve Jobs from Apple Computer. We're very glad to be here tonight.
I think you always had to be a little different to buy an Apple computer.
Original Macintosh
and I think
launch.
You still have to think differently to buy an Apple computer. And I think the people that do buy them They are the people that are not just out to get a job done. They're
Very
out to
famous
change the
picture of
world.
him in his very Spartan
What a
living
computer
room.
is to me is it's the most remarkable tool that we've ever come up with. And it's the equivalent of a bicycle for our minds.
The Bondi
This is
Blue.
iMac. The whole thing is translucent. You can see
This was after
into
his
it. It's
return.
so
This
cool.
was his first.
Pleased to announce today that I'm going to drop the interim title.
Yeah,
He was the iCEO for a long time.
that's genuine.
We used to stand at the intersection of technology and humanity,
That's the beautiful.
and to make something for
Lamp,
people that
iMac.
want to bring this into their lives and use it for things that make them more creative, not just make them more productive.
First MacBook Pro.
This amazing
Look how
little
tiny.
device holds
iPod.
1,000 songs, and it goes right in my pocket. An iPod, a phone,
And of course,
and an internet communicator.
very famous.
An iPod, a phone.
I love how the audience is just
getting
on
it?
the edge of their seats for that.
And we are calling it iPhone.
That smile, a huge smile on the stage.
We have a chance if we stay focused.
This changed the
and
industry, the
choose
MacBook
wisely,
Air. He took it out of
to
an
really
envelope.
continue to impact people's lives in some small way for the better.
There's an old Wayne Gretzky quote that I love. I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been. And we've always tried to do that at Apple since the very, very beginning. And we always will. So thank you very, very much for being part of this.
Yeah. Really, no one is was ever better at introducing a product. And while Apple does great stuff today, especially their most recent product announcement for the iPhone 13 is beautifully done, it's not relying on the one person.
He had such a presence.
Yeah.
He's just like a master of his craft. And like the iPhone introduction, the Intel switch, those were a master of his craft at the height of his game. Just so well laid out. He paused, he waited, he engaged, he laughed. Like it's just he was so good at commanding that stage.
Apple,
Because he loved being there. He was so proud of the stuff he was putting out. I remember that I was at the introduction of the iPad, and it was, I think, maybe the first one in which he was presenting sitting down in those really nice big black leather chairs, and he was very, very frail. He was obviously dealing with stuff, but nonetheless, every time they cut to a video, I couldn't watch the video because I was watching him like off stage, but close enough that I could see him. He was standing, he was watching, he was engaged with the video, he was beaming because he was like, "Oh my God, me and my team spent so much time building this beautiful thing, and I can't wait to share it. I can finally blab about it to the entire world." And that was so visible and infectious.
Right below the video on Apple.com, front page of Apple, it's entirely, the Apple site entirely devoted to this. Statement from the Jobs family. I won't read the whole thing. For a decade now, mourning and healing have gone together. Our gratitude has become as great as our loss. Memory is inadequate for what is in our hearts. We miss him profoundly. We are blessed to have him as a husband and as a father. There's also a Tim Cook memo. We could probably read a little bit from that. The memo sent out to the staff team. Today marks the 10th anniversary of Steve's passing. It's a moment to celebrate his life and reflect on the extraordinary legacy he left behind. Steve believed that people with passion can change the world for the better. That's the philosophy that inspired him to create Apple, and it lives in us today. Steve was a singular figure. He taught us all how to soar. I miss him and will cherish him always.
There was a Jony Ive one yesterday too.
Yeah, in the Wall Street Journal. I can bring that up too. Jony Ive on what he misses most about Steve Jobs. Of course, I think there was no closer collaborator in the final years of his life than Jony Ive. He delivered a eulogy in which he referred to
so
chairman and
powerful.
co-founder of Apple as my closest and most loyal friend. He's, of course, since left Apple. He starts his piece in the journal with, "I have barely thought about Steve's death. My memories of that brutal, heartbreaking day 10 years ago are scattered and random. I cannot remember driving down to his house. I do remember hazy October skies and shoes that were too tight. I remember afterwards, Tim and I sat quietly in the garden for a long time together, but I think about Steve every day. Steve's widow, Lorene, and I are close. Our families have been close for nearly 30 years. So that's interesting. I loved how Steve saw the world the way he thought was profoundly beautiful. So, then it's a much longer piece.
The fragility of ideas. Yeah,
ideas are fragile.
He was talking about how
He says, if they were resolved, they would not be ideas, they'd be products. As thought grew into ideas, however tentative, however fragile, he recognized that this was hallowed ground. He had such deep understanding and reverence for the creative process. He understood creating should be afforded rare respect, not only when the ideas were good or when the secret circumstances were convenient. Steve focused on the actual ideas, however partial and unlikely. I think that they had a meeting of the minds, didn't they? They had almost electric back and forth that made the two of them made stuff that was better than either one could make by themselves. There was quite a synergy. Yeah.
Same wavelength.
Yeah. It's interesting. He says, Lorene and I are at last working together. Here's a picture of Lorene Jobs and Jony Ive. It's a beautiful picture. Lorene, of course, has become quite a philanthropist. So Steve's last words to me were that he would miss talking together. I was sitting on the floor next to his bed, my back against the wall. After he died, I walked out into the garden. I remember the sound of the latch on the wooden door as I gently pulled it closed. In the garden, I sat and thought how talking often gets in the way of listening and thinking. Perhaps that's why so much of our time together was spent quietly. I miss Steve desperately, and I will always miss not talking with him. Quite beautiful tribute from Jony Ive. 10 years, we talk. I'm not going to. We talk enough about how Apple's done after Steve and all of that. But I think it's appropriate on this, the 10th anniversary of his death. He was young, 56 years old, to talk a little bit about our memories and thoughts of him.
He built I think he was aware that with Apple, he was building a cathedral, just like in the olden days, where the architect and the first planner would know that this is going to take so long to build that I will not live to see its the final stone being set in place. And I think that part of his pride in Apple was making sure that this company that he had co-founded, that he had put so much of his personal stamp on, making sure that he was hiring the right people, instituting the right culture, putting the right infrastructure inside the company to make sure that that culture is taught and shared amongst senior executives, that this thing would go on and still be recognizably Apple and not just be, okay, well, technically speaking, we're making Macintoshes. Technically speaking, we're still making iPhones, but this is a financial company that dabbles in hardware, or this is a services company that occasionally does a health product because they thought that it was a fun enterprise to get into. That it will always be his greatest achievement, the company, not any specific thing he ever made.
Well, and I think that what Apple is doing now is less crazy than it was when they got started, but creating a system that they have so much control over that's so insular is generally something that doesn't work. And then they were told that over and over and over again, that the approach that they took of not having a lot of other people building a bunch of stuff for them, and they're becoming in many ways more that way than less that way, because they can. But when he took it on, there was no guarantee that it was going to work. In fact, it was probably not. It was almost without someone like him, without that singularity and focus and the ability to keep that moving. There's no way. I mean, that's why almost no other company tries to do that, because it's an almost impossible cliff.
He got that idea from Alan Kay, who was really an amazing visionary, was at Xerox PARC, became an Apple, I think he's still an Apple fellow. He's one of the most inspirational people in technology. It was Alan Kay who said people who are really serious about software should make their own hardware. And I think Steve took that to heart. And maybe he turned it around the other way. People who make hardware should make their own software. But either way, that's Apple's
It's so
credo.
hard. It's incredibly hard to do. Yeah, it's incredibly hard to do what they're doing. But when it works, you are in a completely different place, and that's what we're seeing with the M1s and with a lot of those tight systems. It becomes almost impossible to compete with, because if you can get to the scale that you need to get to do that, it becomes really formidable, because you kind of create your own weather system.
Yeah, and of course Steve led the charge moving from the Motorola 68000 to PowerPC and then from PowerPC to Intel. I wonder if he even contemplated. He must have, but it just took a long time for Apple to build its own expertise. They bought PA Risk. That I think he was involved in that.
PA Semi, yeah.
PA Semi. And I suspect that that maybe was a distant dream for him. But now under Tim Cook, it's become a reality.
And in a lot of ways, if you talk to some of the folks that were there in the 90s when he took over, he put out a lot of fires really fast. Like Apple was, they were going to hit the ground. Like the engines were on fire.
They were almost bankrupt.
The plane was going down, and he came in and did a near. It's like being down, 22 points, in the fourth quarter with 5 minutes left, and he just kept scoring. But it was like you couldn't miss a single play, and for Apple to survive. And he did all the things that needed to get done to turn it around. And then really, I don't think they considered them stable until the iPhone. It was, it was only 10 years. The iPhone came almost only 10 years after that they were going to go bankrupt.
Yeah, I think that's what. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Am I interrupting or?
That's okay.
So we all so much just talk about sometimes. What I wanted to get in was that, I think that's part of what restored confidence in Apple, that there was somebody who was making decisions and sticking with them. There was somebody who had a plan. They weren't just flailing about saying, oh, well, what if we get Macs sold by Sears? What if we have entire product line, which is just rebranded Macintoshes, but they can only be sold in a line of stores? One of the first decisive things he did was to say, here is our, from a time where there was a book that I have a copy of one of them. There was a book this thick just explaining all the different kinds of Macintoshes that are being sold under all kinds of different names. And he turned it into a 2x2 grid. We have a consumer desktop. We have a professional desktop. We have a consumer laptop. We have a professional laptop. That's our entire line. And it energized not only restored faith in people who were investing in the company, who were going to be buying hardware for the company. It was also lighting a fire under the people working for a company, knowing that, again, if he's decided to cancel this project, it's not because he's, again, flailing about saying, well, I got to do something. I have to show a strong hand. It's because there is a plan to save this company. And now there's a target to work for, not just simply let's just keep running the clock and seeing what happens. So this is why Renee and I were talking before the show about all these really interesting devices that like BlackBerry put out and HP put out, but then like withdrew 2 or 3 months later because of total lack of faith. And that's the sort of thing that demoralizes a staff, saying that we're making this, we got the funds to make this product, but we have no idea whether management thinks this is important for the company or not. And maybe there will be some sort of a change in the tea leaves that will cause them to cancel our entire project on the most absurd of notes. Whereas if you're working for Apple under Steve Jobs, now you know that, look, if we has pared down the product line to exactly this means that this is a priority. It might succeed, it might fail, but the head of the company thinks that this is important for the development of the company. So that's what puts your shoulder to the wheel even tighter than you would if you felt as though you were on a sinking ship.
And even then, sometimes to my own frustration, they would change, what was important and really dance with what was available to them. So if you look at like when Final Cut started going down the path, Apple started investing more in things like Shake, and they're really thinking this is going to be a core part of our product until the iPod took off. And then they said, okay, well, this is going to be a smaller part of our product, and, eventually discontinued it. But you could tell that was something that they had decided was going to be popular, and then it just didn't turn out that way for them. But I think that it was, so they were willing to dance with the market as well as be sure of what they want to do. And it's really hard to do both.
Here's Steve on the Apple product matrix strategy you were talking about.
When we got to the company a year ago, there were a lot of products. These were the product platforms, 15 product platforms, and a zillion variants of each one. I couldn't even figure this out myself. After about 3 weeks, I said, how are we going to explain this to others when we don't even know which products to recommend to our friends? If we had 4 great products, that's all we need. And as a matter of fact, if we only had 4, we could put the A-team on every single one of them. And if we only had 4, we could turn them all every 9 months instead of every 18 months.
And if we only had 4, we could be working on the next generation or 2 of each one as we're introducing the first generation. So that's what we decided to do, to focus on 4 great products. That's the consumer, business, desktop, and laptop that you were talking about, Andy. Yeah. If there are quite a few books about Steve Jobs, obviously, and I'm sure most people will go to the Walter Isaacson book. That's the kind of definitive biography, the one that Steve cooperated most with. But there's actually, I think, a better book. This is by
agreed.
Brett Schlendler and Rick Tetzelli, who had covered Apple when they were at the Seattle Times, wrote a book about his transformation. So when he was at Apple the first time, he was a little bratty, a little unfocused. There's some really the book starts with a scene where he's in tears. He's so upset, but he matured by leaving Apple, by running Next, running Pixar, which made him a lot of money, and then he bought for I think like $10 million. Yeah. And there's a long story, an interesting story there about the politics of that, but he certainly benefited from that. And then in Becoming Steve Jobs, it talks about how he learned how to be a CEO, and so that when he came back in 1997 or 96, he was a changed man. And so this is really a good book if you want to understand the 2 Steve Jobs. There really were. It's called Becoming Steve Jobs: The Evolution of a Reckless Upstart into a Visionary Leader. You like this too, Renee? You agree?
Yeah, it's way better. I think the Isaacson book he didn't focus on what I wanted to know about Steve. It was a bunch of ancillary things that Steve Jobs wasn't famous for, and I guess some of those details can be interesting. But I wanted to know about Next. There's nothing about Next in that entire book.
Well, I feel like Isaacson was somewhat led.
I like this one so
Isaacson was led by Steve, right? I think the Isaacson book was.
But Apple wasn't happy
Steve's
with it either. I don't think anybody was happy with the way Isaacson's book turned out.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah,
it's perspective.
It's worth reading. There's great anecdotes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ken Kashinda's is great too. He did creative selection about working with and pitching to Steve Jobs and Apple's process, a relentless process of whittling things down. Like Steve's why are there 2 of these? Just pick one. It's a brilliant book on Apple's whole cultural process during the Steve Jobs era.
I just want to run over and get the Isaacson book, because Steve had been looking down on us from the shelf over here for, I don't know.
From on high?
Since we moved into this studio, that great iconic picture of Steve, contemplating with his hand on his chin. Read them all.
Yeah.
Why not read them all? But I think Becoming Steve Jobs, if you're interested in how because he had this horrible reputation. And Alex, you're very familiar with it because I think you experienced it firsthand.
I did. But it wasn't. It was me being brash at the time. I mean, I was much younger then, and being more demanding. And he didn't do anything particularly mean. Just stop talking to me.
Which, to be fair, inside Apple is a lot of employees' greatest dream. Please let Steve Jobs never talk to me and never know my name.
Well, the big lesson there was also that, and pretty much everyone that I had been talking to at Apple, because I had started pretty much at the top of Apple, talking to Steve, and then him handing me to other people to work on a project, and the project wasn't going as fast as I thought it should, and I was trying to push it forward, and anyway, but then everyone around that I'd been talking to disappeared too. It was just everything. And then I learned very quickly at Apple and in pretty much all companies is you want to stay away from the top of the pyramid as much as you possibly can, and just work with people that are doing what they need to get, doing what they need to do, and make lots of friends, and not at the top if you can avoid it, because it's just if you turn that the wrong direction, it's bad. So anyway, but it was really an eye-opening experience for me, though. The fact that when Jony Ive talks about curiosity in that article, and how he was really passionate about those things, and how it started the conversation that started with me and Steve Jobs. It was over email, and it was they had just released the iMac, and I had just finished working on Star Wars, and I had gathered a bunch of folks together that said that they'd be willing to teach kids how to make movies, a bunch of folks from Lucasfilm and ILM, to teach the kids how to make movies with iMovie. And I said, I just sent like a real quick, like tiny, I figured he probably read emails the way I do, which is if they're longer than 6 lines, I never get to them. And so I wrote this really short, what do you think of having a bunch of folks that just finished Star Wars, teach kids how to make movies? And I got an email back like on a Saturday night in like 10 minutes. It said, tell me more. And then I wrote along.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And then it was like, here are the people you need to talk to. And he introduced me, and then boom, it was all moving. It didn't turn out, but it was just really like someone who really was trying to figure it out.
Yeah, he was engaged.
All the
There's
time.
no question at all about that. Steve, we'll miss you 10 years in. Who knows what he would have accomplished later in life, but he certainly did an awful lot in those 56 years.
Yeah.
We'll
Into
take
the universe.
Yeah. We'll take a little break, come back with more. There's other Apple news. Our show today brought to you by Our Crowd. All around the world, tech companies are innovating, driving returns for investors. And I bet a few of us are sitting there on the sidelines thinking, golly, am I missing the boat on some of the most interesting companies in the world? Our Crowd is an interesting company. Essentially, they're a venture capital company. They're venture capitalists, accredited investors who analyze companies across the global private market. These are pre-IPO companies. They select those with the greatest growth potential for their own investment, but they also, and this is what's really interesting about Our Crowd, give you a chance to invest. So it's in kind of a lot of sectors, from personalized medicine, cybersecurity, robotics, quantum computing. Our Crowd is identifying innovators, whether they're little startups in garages or in state-of-the-art labs, so that you can invest when the growth potential is the greatest early. Getting in early is really the key. Our Crowd's accredited investors have already invested over $1 billion in growing tech companies. Many of their members have benefited from the 46 IPOs or sale exits of their investments. So you're getting in before the IPO or the exit. Now you could truly diversify your portfolio by investing early in innovative private market companies at Our Crowd. Now, I want to explain, and you should go to ourcrowd.com/MacBreak to find this out. You need to be what U.S. calls accredited investor. You can do this anywhere in the world, but each country has different rules. So when you sign up at Our Crowd, it will ask you what country you're in, and it will then say, okay, these are the rules for being an accredited investor. You can participate in single company deals for as little as $10,000 once you are accredited, or you can buy into Our Crowd's funds, because they also do funds for as little as $50,000. A minimum of $10,000 is required to invest. Investment terms may vary depending on where you invest. For more information, when you go to the site and input the country you're investing from, you'll find out what you need to know about the restrictions in that country. But if you understand investing, I think these accreditation rules are set up to keep innocent investors from getting involved. But if you are, you're sophisticated, you have a portfolio, you're already investing, and you've always thought, how can I crack into this market? This is the way to do it. And by the way, they're investing too. So, they really put their money where their mouth is. Join the fastest growing venture capital investment community. It's a really interesting idea. And when you look at the exits they've had, I think you'll see there's a real opportunity. ourcrowd.com/MacBreak. It's not for everybody, but if it's for you, this is really the place to be. ourcrowd.com/MacBreak. We thank them so much for, I think that they think, and I think they're probably right, the MacBreak audience is an affluent group of people, with savvy people who might be looking to expand their investments. So we thank them for supporting us, and we thank you if you are one of those people for using that address so they know you saw it here. Our Crowd, ourcrowd.com/MacBreak. I skipped the iPhone 13. I think I'm even more likely to skip the Apple Watch 7, which pre-orders start this Friday, and you'll be getting it if you order at 5 a.m. Pacific on Friday. You might have a shot at getting it October 15th. Much delayed from the announcement because, I think, of the chip shortage, but also rumors were that the screen was tricky to make. It's bigger and it kind of wraps around a little bit more. But
well, first, Leo, we need you to turn in your 6 color card to Jason Snell next time.
I know.
You skip 2 Apple products in a row.
And
that's
it's funny because I love the Apple Watch, but I have to point out the new one has the same chip in it, right?
Yeah.
So
it's close. It's got the same core. It's not the same system and package, but it's the same chipset, the same A13 core on the chipset. The CPU did not change.
So faster, but more efficient, maybe. Bigger,
different display drivers and different power regulation circuitry. The thing is, though, like unlike the iPhone, which is saturated, which almost all customers now are upgrade and some switching customers, the vast majority of iPhone owners still don't have an Apple Watch. And so when Apple's marketing this, like even like the iPhone, nobody expects you to get a new iPhone every year. It's only people like us or people on like subscription plans who get it, or people who are really affluent who get new iPhones every year just because it's what they do. Most people don't. Like I think it's 80% of people don't buy new iPhones every year. They buy them every 3 to 5 years. But the vast majority of people don't have an Apple Watch. So instead of targeting Apple Watch owners, which are really small, Apple just wants every year to whittle a little bit away of the things that are preventing people from getting an Apple Watch. And full autonomy is obviously the big one, because then you wouldn't even have to have an iPhone to get an Apple Watch. They're not quite there yet because it's cellular technology and a bunch of other things aren't in place. But they're adding things like resistance, like crack proofing and dust ingress protection and things like that. So it's more resilient for people. So it really is like if you have a very old Apple Watch or no Apple Watch, and if you've got a recent Apple Watch, you're fine. Just enjoy it.
And I think that I'm probably the target audience for this because I'm still on the 4, right? So
you definitely are, yeah.
I skipped a couple of years in my, but I think that's the whole point, is that coming out with it every year just lets you decide when on the carousel you want to get on and off and everything else. I think getting on every time I just decided there wasn't enough. Like I kept on looking at it, like, do I really need another one? I think this one's just fine. The stopwatch or the countdown clock and the alarm.
I didn't get the last one. Yeah. I just wanted always on, and I got that with the 5, so I didn't get the 6, and I'm totally happy with the 5 still.
Yeah. So
bigger screens, 41 and 45 millimeters, softer, more rounded edges. Unlike the rumored
the numbers
renders,
are a bit of a lie, though.
Oh, really?
Because so like they wanted to make the screens as big as they could without making the casing any bigger, and it turned out they had to make it a millimeter bigger. But the screens are like 20% bigger than the 4, 5, 6, and 50% bigger than the 0, 1, 2, 3. And they've
because of smaller borders,
right?
Now smaller borders is
and getting the display drivers and everything put into those tiny little borders was the big engineering work this year.
Still always on, of course, more durable, crack resistant, as you mentioned, front glass, IP6X, dust resistance,
and brighter
WR50
when it's always on inside now. So
right,
like the max nits didn't increase, but the indoor nits for always on did. So now like if Andy or Alex or I are trying to look how long Mac Break is going, we can do like way more subtle about it.
Yeah. Yes. Strongly urge you not to look at your watch while you're doing the show.
I love that they called that out right during the middle of the event too.
Yeah, they knew.
And it was like, no, we're not going to be coy about this. It wasn't. We're not bragging about the wonderful display. We're saying, yeah, we know how people use watches. We've been at the other side of that table, at both sides of that table. Yes.
This is going to be the way it is now from now on, right? The incremental improvements, because it's hard to make big improvements because
it's mature.
It's mature. They're at pretty close to perfect.
The VR headset and the glasses will get big improvements for like 2-3 years, and then they'll be the same thing too. And then the car, and then it'll be the same thing too. Well, it's like TV sets and cars. Like nobody expects their TV or
Yeah, you don't get a new TV every year.
Exactly.
No, or a new car. Exactly. But Alex's point was great. It's like it's a bakery. Every day they have to make French bread. You don't buy fresh bread every day, but you need fresh bread when you go to the grocery store.
I do.
You deserve fresh bread when you go to the grocery
store. But yeah, I mean, it's absurd when you think about how often we are buying these electronics. My microwave came with the house, and I bought I bought a rice cooker.
But there are new ones every year.
The same one for the last decade, and exactly.
So you should Alex would be a good candidate with a
my battery, my watch is, the battery doesn't last as long as it used to. And it's, it doesn't have always on. And I still am always amazed at how much I do use it compared to, I used to have a pretty nice Citizen watch that, I don't know, it was $400 or $500 or $500 or $600 watch it was the cheapest watch that I could find that did the things that I needed to do. And now I have a watch that does all those things, that for me costs less, and I just use it all day. Like the timers for the most part, timers and alarms. Like I just have this thing. Like, and now I have this thing. Like if I buy a subscription, I look down and I go, just remind me to cancel this in a month, or remind me to do this, or remind me to turn the water off in the pool. Right? I'm constantly having my watch remind me of things as I'm working, just because I forget everything. So it's useful.
Yeah,
I don't use any of the apps.
When they first came out with the Apple Watch, I got the impression they didn't even plan to update it every year, but that is now the cadence.
Right. Yeah,
and
it's tied to the iPhone launch, just like the Space Shuttle to Starship iPhone.
Right.
And so every year they were updated in tandem.
Right. If you are using an Apple Watch with an iPhone 13 and you've had trouble with the Apple Watch Unlock, I've been using it with iPhone 12. It's so nice not to have to worry about my mask. That I find, the phone unlocks now when I raise it, just because I'm wearing the watch. Apparently, that was an issue with some watches and iPhone 13s. That's why we have iOS 15.0.1, which I still have yet to update. There are other reasons to update, though. Yes, Renee, is there
a bunch of bug fixes?
Bug fixes.
Yeah, it's like what. Yeah, so like you get the red release and then you get the blue release.
Right.
And that's like the blue release. It depends how fast you get it, depending how bad the red release.
And Alex always says, wait for the fix for the blue release. Right?
Yeah.
So 15.02 would be the one to get.
Yeah.
If there is one, yeah. Depends how bad 01 is.
Yeah. I could go through the list.
Because 15.1 is already in beta. So the second beta for 15.1 is out already. So they're moving along at a brisk clip.
Good. There have been other bugs in iOS 15. I've seen people complain about the touch screen responsiveness. There have been posts on Reddit and elsewhere. Does this fix that or no?
I believe it fixed all those initial bugs.
Okay.
I haven't seen too many complaints since then.
Okay. Good. That's good news. Yeah, I've had that from time to time with a number of phones where it's as if they're busy off doing something else when you touch the screen, and then
they hung a sign in the window saying "Wait for lunch."
Yeah, and then they go, "Oh, sorry, I wasn't watching," and usually that's fixed with a bug fix. So good. I hope that is fixed. If you're having that problem, you might want to look at 15.0.1. AnandTech's regular, I guess yearly review of the new Apple chip, the A15, is out. Many pages. I haven't had time to read it all.
I read it this morning.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's why I didn't read it. I thought, Renee read this.
I love this stuff. I mean, AnandTech has such a rich, like from Anand himself to Brian Klug to Joshua Ho to Brandon Chester down to Andre. They just do such. They should benchmark. All of us shouldn't be benchmarking. We have no idea
let them do
what
it.
a benchmark
Yeah.
is. We download an app, we press a button, we
we're losing Renee. He's frozen solid. We moved. I mentioned moved over from Zoom. I checked. Scooter X sent me the Zoom.
Don't understand
status page.
It's pretty much what we expected.
He's now hearing me say we lost some of that.
Oh, sorry.
Start all over. Start all over again. We lost a lot of it.
It's pretty much exactly what we expected. It's got the new generation of Apple cores. So you have Blizzard high efficiency cores and Avalanche high performance cores. Those replace Ice Storm and Firestorm. And I think those names are sort of symbolic for what Apple's done this year. They only increased frequencies as a way to increase speed. There was no new process this year. They didn't shrink down to like 3 nanometers or anything, but the frequencies are higher, double the cache. So these chips are cooler and they can run way more efficiently. So the efficiency, the cool thing is they're 10% faster on single core, 20% faster on multi-core, up to 55% faster on GPU on the G14 cores. Those will decelerate faster because of the heat envelope. But they do all that with like phenomenally better battery life, which is a big deal because the iPhone 12s were not phenomenal at all on battery life. So I think they really this is a cold chip. It's got cold names because it's a cold chip.
Yeah. The author, Andre Frumusanu, I think is how you say his name, says the possible reasons for Apple's more moderate microarchitectural changes this year might be a storm of a few factors. Apple had notably lost their lead architect on the big performance cores, as well as parts of the design team to Nuvia in 2019, which was later acquired by Qualcomm earlier this year. The shift towards ARM v9 might also imply some more work done on the design and the pandemic situation might also have contributed to some non-ideal execution. We'll have to examine next year's A16 to really determine if Apple's design cadence has slowed down or whether this year was just a slippage or maybe a lull.
I think people are overly optimistic about ARM v9. I think ARM was ARM v7 when Apple started. Apple really pushed them to go to ARM 64. ARM 64 was basically an Apple ISA. Nobody else cared about 64-bit at the time, and Apple got to have their way with it. And ARM v9, when you read the spec, there's a couple things that are interesting, like the matrix multiplication improvements, but it really sounds like ARM is backporting everything Apple's done with their own silicon for the last 4 years to all the other ARM licensees. It's sort of like, okay, Apple's really been pushing the pace. We're going to reverse engineer as much as we can, give it to you in the Cortex cores, and then you can license those designs to as much as you want. So I think Apple's already skated to where ARM v9 is going to be in large part.
Andre, also, go ahead, Alex.
I also think that this is exactly why Apple used to not put any stats out, and it still doesn't lean on stats that much. There's what does the new phone do as opposed to how fast is the processor? Because the reality is we're barely using the processor to its maximum capacity almost ever. Like it is so rare for us to hit I hit the phone ceiling relatively often because I'm doing AR stuff. So I will, figure, it's 2 million polygons. That 2 million polygons turns out to be where things start to get uncomfortable. And, over, 30 megs of texture maps tends to be a little heavy for the phone. And those numbers are astronomical compared to what you're normally doing with your phone. So I don't think that the performance really matters. I mean, I think that the things that it does, like, Apple ProRes 422HQ, just so exciting.
Which used to be an afterburner card. Like Apple, that was one of the biggest revelations to me. Apple spent a lot of their transistor budget off the main cores, and they've been doing that for a while because there's going to be a thermal limit to what you can do, even with spikes in a small device. So like the cores are only going to go so far, or just they're going to cause a brownout at some point because the batteries will never get that much bigger. But they're spending all of those transistors, and this year they have ProRes hardware acceleration on the chip. 2 years ago, they announced afterburner cards for the Mac Pro, these huge reprogrammable ASIC cards to handle ProRes acceleration. Now it's a block on this chip. And that makes me start thinking, what if that block is on the Mac Pro, the MacBook Pro chips? Then you suddenly have afterburner Mac Pros built into a chipset, not a giant card, not a Mac Pro, but like every computer.
And take a side route for just a second. Stu Maschwitz, who's my old office buddy at ILM, posted a comparison between the H265 and the ProRes on Twitter. If you just search for, I think it's 52U, but Stu put it up there. It's profound. Like it's not it's not a minor upgrade. I was glad that I'd already ordered the phone when I saw it because I was like I think I want this, and then as soon as I saw the update, it was
kind of what Andre said.
There's a video up on YouTube
just
now. Because
Apple didn't compare the performance of the A15 to the previous generation, but only the competition, doesn't mean that this isn't an improved phone. And he says you might take the somber tone of that paragraph wrong because there is some massive stuff done here. He, as you said, Renee, he points to the efficiency cores of the A15. He says they've seen massive gains this time around.
Yeah, they're not little anymore.
Yeah, with Apple mostly investing them back into performance, the new cores showcase a 23 to 28% absolute performance improvement. This is on the efficiency cores, the cores you go to save power. Something, he says, points out that isn't easily identified by popular benchmarking. This is why we turn to AnandTech.
Oh, yeah, they take performance cores, only.
The large performance further, this improvement in the efficiency cores further helps the SoC improve energy efficiency. That's why you're getting great battery life. He also says in the GPU side, Apple's peak performance improvements are off the charts with a combination of new, larger GPU, new architecture, and the larger system cache that helps both performance as well as efficiency. And the subtext to me on that is you want to see this because the next challenge for Apple is going to make their MacBooks and their Mac Pros with high-end GPUs, competing with the high-end GPU models. They don't use these GPUs anymore. So Apple's going to have to do homegrown GPUs that can compete with the Radeons. And so to me, it's encouraging and not surprising that Apple put a lot of energy into the GPUs on the phone because, of course, this A15 is kind of, I don't know if it's the same as the M1X will be or the big brother or the little brother of the M1X, but it's definitely that work is going to go into the M1X and the M2.
The M1X will probably be purpose-built, my guess, because it's got a very strange, like from what we know, from what people have been saying, like Mark Gurman's been reporting, it's only going to have 2 efficiency cores and then like 8 performance cores. So half the efficiency cores, twice the performance cores. Some people worry about battery life, but coincidentally, macOS Monterey is getting a low power mode the same year that we're going to be getting these new MacBook Pros, and then 8 to 16 of these new GPU cores. And they'll probably be based on A14 architecture because they were rumored to have been like designed for the June release and got pushed out because of the mini LED displays. But there's not to say that Apple didn't start the whole ProRes hardware accelerators for M1X and say, hey, look, we can put these in the iPhone this year too. Like they're not in lockstep. Every one of their chips are purpose built.
Good.
It's super exciting.
We're hoping. I mean, I was hoping we'd see an invitation from Apple today.
It was Google.
It was Google. It was Google. Google confirmed the October 19th date. They did ship, by the way, and not only did Windows 11 come out, Android 12 came out yesterday. So another big story that we didn't cover. But so I guess no Apple event on the 12th would be accurate, right?
I'm guessing end of the month, beginning of November.
Yes, since Google's doing it on the 19th, I'm thinking that rules out the next 2 weeks. So it's going to be...
And traditionally, the events get spread out a little bit more. It's a lot to put on a big event.
Okay.
So usually it's there's a whole cadence to that you rarely see 2 announcements that are closer than 2 months.
Well, didn't we last
October
year?
30th
though?
was the 2018 was October 30th.
Okay.
Was the Mac event.
And 2019, didn't they do 3?
2019. No, that was
like
2020. They did 3, but those were virtual events, and they had to do that for the iPhone. The iPhone got moved to October.
That's right.
And so they pushed the Mac stuff out to November.
But they did do September, October, November.
They did September, October, November. Yeah.
So, but that's not a template. That was just that was COVID. So you think maybe October, late October, or maybe early November. Go ahead.
If they continue the pattern that they just did with the last launch, it also means that there's a lot less pressure on, when or how to do it, because you're not doing it in a whole event. What I mean by that is that I think that the iPhone launch was what they planned to do with people in it, and then they just made it virtual at the last minute, and so it was
interesting.
You have basically Tim Cook coming up and announcing movies. Let's watch another movie, and let's watch another movie. And I think that's the pattern we're probably going to see. And the advantage of that is that there's not as much pre-pro, because there's a lot more pre-pro in the sense that the movies get done, but they can get done over time.
There's less rehearsal. Is what you're saying.
Less rehearsal time.
Yeah. So you think even with a live audience, and maybe this will be a live audience, so Tim would come on stage, but he would still introduce pre-produced movies.
I think it's the next step for them is to you have someone live that's doing it, but you're getting into the habit of taking them all over California. Do we take them all over the United States on the next one? Do we take them all over the world on the next one? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they can't. You no longer can keep the same energy that you can do with a movie on stage.
So do you think in 3 years it'll be on Mars?
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
On the moon. Elon Musk through that.
I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna throw it to somebody a mile away on the moon, and you just
float and slowly spin.
Flies past Elon's Roadster, and then it just keeps going.
Mark Gurman says the M1X MacBook Pro is still on track for this year. In fact, his phrase in his Power On newsletter is "in the next month."
Can I just complain about something? So I love all my blogger and YouTuber friends so much, but Mark is a Bloomberg journalist. When he puts something in a report, he says, according to sources, like when it's actual news, he is very specific, like where he got it from, what the vetting that he put into it, what exactly they said. But then in the newsletter, he also puts in personal opinions, and he'll say, like, I wish Apple made it in purple. But people are so hungry right now, so thirsty. They'll say, Mark Gurman said the Apple Watch is coming in purple. No, he said he would like it in purple. And that's the same thing. He's like, I expect it in the next month. It doesn't say according to sources familiar with the situation. It doesn't say according to 3 people I spoke with who were briefed on the matter. That's just his opinion.
Okay, we'll make it clear.
They
here's
don't
the exact
which is
sentence.
opinion and which is news.
The new MacBook Pro didn't appear at Apple's September product unveiling, but it should still be launching in the coming weeks. Who knows how many that is. But you're right. This is his speculation because he's adding the sentence, Apple typically does its major new Mac introductions in October, so stay tuned. Just like what we've
we just
saying.
said. Yeah.
We don't know.
But nobody blogs us.
Yeah. We don't know. So the new MacBook Pro lineup, probably in 2021, 14 and 16-inch configurations, mini LED displays, and maybe all those ports. That's what everybody seems to say. And Alex, you'll be happy to see MagSafe back.
MagSafe.
And maybe no
losing
touch
some
bar
USB-C.
either, which would be a kind of a shocking admission from Apple that wasn't such a great idea.
Wouldn't it be interesting if the new MagSafe was like the phone and it was like some big thing at the bottom and you just set your phone?
Please don't do that. No, we don't want inductive charging on a 100-watt battery. That's a bad idea.
It's a good way to.
It won't be 100 watts anymore, though, because it's not using Intel silicon.
Okay. Well, no, it's still.
I just want Ethernet on the power brick, like the iMac. I'm so torn on the ports because, like, a lot of prosumers are going to be really happy because they'll have HDMI back and they'll have SD cards. But like, I use CF Express cards, so now I'm losing a US. I'm using a Thunderbolt. I'm losing a Thunderbolt port, and I still have to have a dongle because I'm using CF Express cards. So like, it's never going to be perfect. I'm living dongle life forever. So like, whatever with the ports, it's fine.
Good article by Jiska. Who's I gather a developer, always on processor, how Find My works while iPhone is powered off. Kind of a surprise with iOS 15, when you press the power off, it underneath the slide to turn off, there's a line that says iPhone findable. Here's a picture of it after power off. I don't know if you I hadn't noticed that. I actually, as soon as I read this article, I said, "Oh, let me turn that on." So that implies that power off is no longer fully power off. And here's if you look at the information, iPhone remains findable after power off. Find My helps you locate this phone when it's lost or stolen after the shutdown. The location is visible. Now, it tells you this advisorily because you can temporarily turn off finding if you want to turn off the phone for purposes, of Jason Bourne-style hiding from the authorities.
Yeah.
That's actually really interesting. So it got her thinking. It's like, what's going on here? Matthew Green, our favorite cryptographer from Johns Hopkins, also says, so I guess power off doesn't mean off anymore? It means device stays on and does some kind of low power near field communications. I'm trying to decide how I feel about this.
I really wish my phone would die 5% earlier so that it could last a week or two. I've definitely tried to figure out what happened to a phone that died. I have a couple phones and I was using it for something else. And so I put it in some case and then I couldn't figure out what case it went in and it died. And, if it turned off a little early and then lasted for weeks, in that kind of low, like you can find me, but I'm not going to do anything else.
It does, but not for weeks.
I think it would benefit.
So you can still use it for keys. Like it does a bunch of stuff. Like they don't want you to run out of power. For example, if you're using your iPhone as a key to your car, so all the new U1 powered car key features will keep working for hours after your phone. And the phone has never gone all the way down. It always turns off like at around 5%. They tell you it's 0% because they don't want you to worry about it, but it's really like 5% because you don't want to completely discharge lithium-ion batteries for a long period of time. So there's a bunch of like non-user exposed implementation details.
So is it? Also, it's not clear, but is it using UWB when it's off? What's it using?
For like 8 hours or something.
So it's beaconing.
Yeah.
It's doing Bluetooth beaconing even when it's power, and I'm putting this in air quotes, powered off. It's not fully powered off. There's an always-on processor doing Bluetooth.
I don't get that. So like my phone doesn't do that. So I haven't been able to test it. When mine turns off, it doesn't give me any warning. It just turns off. So maybe it's not a Canadian feature yet.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's a really good technical article that explains not just how this feature works, but also how phones work in 2021. That it's not an Apple II Plus. There isn't one CPU that gets lit up and turns everything on or off. It's a computer that has lots of other little computers inside them, and the fact that Bluetooth actually has its own little operating system on its chip, that it can be a computer that it turns everything off except for this one little Bluetooth chip that can maintain its own status and therefore turn the phone into a really, really cheap AirTag for the purposes of location finding, and also making it clear that if this does bother you, if you manually turn off Bluetooth while the phone is still alive, then that will turn off the Bluetooth chip entirely, and so it will become inert until somebody finds some other beacon that's happening.
Really? Yeah, really.
It's interesting because people there's a lot of old myths, like people will still power their iPhone, charge it between 20 and 80%, thinking that it helps battery life. But for the last years, every vendor, not just Apple, they use artificial intelligence for that. When you plug it in, it won't charge past it. It'll lie to you. It used to lie to you and say it was stable at 100, but it was always discharging and recharging because you don't want to keep lithium ion. There's two things that hurt lithium ion: heat and high charge state. Or if you store it at zero charge for months, but that takes a long time. It can self-heal from other things. But they do a ton of stuff on the power management system that no human could really micromanage as well, but a lot of people still feel like they have to do it, and really just plug it in and it'll handle it all for you. But some people hate the idea that there's stuff going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, there's actually, I just saw some software that is supposed to take better care of your battery than Apple does. And always my reaction to that is just let Apple.
Yeah, they don't have the same access level that Apple does.
Just let Apple do it. I think Apple knows what they're doing in protecting your battery. I just have that feeling. I don't know.
That said, remember Google got into trouble for saying incognito, for calling a feature incognito mode because it was descriptive and fit what most people would, what they thought what the feature meant. But most people would think that no, when I say incognito, it means that even Google can't track me. So this is why it would be kind of nice if there was something in settings that, or maybe even when you power down the phone, saying, do you want to power it all the way down? Meaning that
that's what we just showed. It does do that. Yeah. That's exactly what it says.
Yeah. And the battery stuff does that too. Like there's a switch you can turn it off if you don't want it to manage battery for you.
But that's what I'm talking about. Like if I'm putting like an iPhone into storage, I've had enough spicy pillows, so to speak, in my experience to know that I would much rather disconnect the battery manually to know that I'm not going to have a storage problem. And if it would give me peace of mind to say, look, I know I think you was that line from Parks and Recreation.
I thought you were going to do Princess Bride. Go ahead, Parks and Recreation.
I was going for a reference
a little more modern. Okay,
but more descriptive. Yeah, where Ron Swanson says, "Give me all the bacon and eggs you have." He says to a diner waiter, like, "Wait, I'm worried that what you heard me say was I want a lot of bacon and eggs. What I said was give me all the bacon and eggs you have." So sometimes this is a situation where I wish that I want to tell the phone, look, I'm worried that you thought that I said I want you to power down the system so it consumes as little battery as possible, even if it's a negligible amount. What I said is that I want this to be an absolutely inert device with zero battery drain whatsoever. And I would love to have that kind of a switch somewhere.
It's an odd thing. Like for a while, they had this problem where people were turning off Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and not understanding why their Apple Watch wasn't working, why they couldn't AirDrop, why why continuity broke. And so they made that change where now if you tap them the first time, it just goes gray and it disconnects you from Wi-Fi, but it keeps the Wi-Fi peer-to-peer Wi-Fi going. And that outraged a bunch of classical computer people because it's an on-off switch, it's binary, it should only have 2 states, not 3 states. And they're like, yeah, but you should see our tech support load. So those kind of things, and you can turn them off, but do you bias towards the expert user who just wants you to do exactly what they say, or do you bias towards the casual user who's like, but I didn't mean for this other stuff to stop working, I just didn't want this anymore?
Let's take a little break. More to come with our esteemed panel: Renee Ritchie, youtube.com/Renee Ritchie, Andy Anako, WGBH Boston, and of course Alex Lindsay, the man, the myth, the legend at officehours.global. The hardest working man in podcasting. What would you call that? It's not a podcast.
I don't know. It's like a global water cooler at this point. It's
like a work stream. Instead of a live stream, it's a work stream.
If you had a water cooler that it just had all the smartest people you could think of that do all kinds of different things, and they're willing to sit there and talk to you about stuff, that's about what it is. I mean, because during the 2 hours of office hours, it's much more intense. We go through about 25 questions an hour. But then the other 21 hours, it's just people hanging out, figuring stuff out together.
Cool.
It's kind of cool.
Such a good idea. Hey, our show today brought to you by, speaking of good ideas, a really important company I want you to know about called UserWay at userway.org. This is, I think, such an important thing for you and your company and your website to know about. Every website needs to be accessible. because every website is a public entity and because it's just the right thing to do. Federal ADA, the Americans with Disability Act, mandates equal access to services for all Americans. There's actually a well-known Supreme Court decision on this. Domino's Pizza said, our website doesn't have to be accessible because there's a phone number. And so if you're blind or otherwise differently abled, you could just call that phone number. Supreme Court said, no, that's separate but equal. That's not legal. And so you need to be accessible. And by the way, we shouldn't have to invoke the ADA or the Supreme Court. It's just the right thing to do. There are millions of users who want to use your goods, your services, your website, who might be left out. UserWay makes it easy and very, by the way, affordable for you to fix your site. UserWay has an incredible AI-powered solution. AI-powered because there's a lot of stuff to fix, but it tirelessly enforces hundreds of WCAG guidelines with just one line of JavaScript. So it's easy on you, it's fast, it's easy on your users of all stripes. UserWay can achieve much more than an entire team of developers. And, by the way, fully customizable, so you could just put that line of JavaScript in there and you're done. Or if you decide, well, one of the things it does, for instance, it auto-generates image alt tags. That's so important. Images, if you're blind, you don't see them. Your screen reader doesn't see them. It's just an empty block on the page. So the alt tags, we've done it. You type in a description of it. UserWay does a very good job automatically generating a subscription. That's where the AI looks and says, oh, it's a Golden Gate Bridge. I'll say a picture of a Golden Gate Bridge. But you can go in and say, no, sunset over the San Francisco Bay, because that's what it means to you and that's what you want that picture to say. It's very easy because it pops up one by one. So you can, if you want to modify it, it makes it very easy to do. Coca-Cola uses it. Disney uses it. eBay, FedEx. Because they know it's important that their sites are accessible. And now UserWay is making its best-in-class enterprise-level accessibility tools available to small and medium businesses. Because UserWay scales to these big companies, you have some confidence that as you get big, UserWay is there for you. It'll scale with you. An accessible and compliant website's not only the right thing to do, it just makes business sense. And one of the big problems is nav bars. I mean, even sighted people have trouble with hamburger menus and those three-dot menus. UserWay remediates complex nav menus, ensures that all pop-ups are accessible, fixes vague link violations, fixes any broken links, ensures your website makes use of accessible colors without changing your brand's Pantone hue. It just changes the saturation and luminance to make it easier for others to read. And this is all done in the accessibility layer, so it doesn't change how your site looks to everybody, just to people using accessibility tools. And you'll get a detailed report of everything that was fixed on your site. Works with WordPress, it works with Shopify, Wix. It's cost-effective, it's easy to add, as little as $49 a month. It also works with big stuff, AEM, Sitecore, SharePoint. It'll integrate seamlessly. It's easy for you, easy for your developers, and it's the right thing to do. You'll meet your compliance goals. You'll improve the experience for your users. You'll open your site up to a huge number of users who will be so thrilled that they can access your site. If you want, you can go to userway.org right now, userway.org/twit, and check out the free scanning tool. You'll see if your website's ADA compliant. We got a little message from the woman who plays the voice of Siri about UserWay. I love this. Listen.
UserWay is trusted by more than 1 million websites and 60 million users with disabilities. Visit userway.org to learn how one line of code can make your website accessible.
Siri. That's I love. So yeah, we have a different clip too, because one of the clips she says, so this way I won't say, I'm sorry, I can't understand that website. UserWay can make any website fully accessible, ADA compliant. It's just the right I just want you to do this so bad. It's the right thing to do. I know, when we were faced with this, we thought, oh God, what? No, this isn't a chore. It's easy. It's affordable. In fact, if you go to userway.org/twit, you'll get 30% off UserWay's AI-powered accessibility solution. UserWay, USERWAY, userway.org/twit, making the internet accessible for everyone. You want everyone who visits your site to be able to browse seamlessly, to customize it to fit their needs. You want to, and you know what? You showcase your brand's commitment to millions of people with disabilities. It's as Microsoft said in their Surface announcement. We're all going to be disabled someday. Some of us are sooner than others. Userway.org/twit. It's the right thing to do. It's the best thing to do. You're going to love it. And we thank them so much. I'm really thrilled. When they came to us and said, we'd like to be on all your shows, I said, I am thrilled. I am 100% in support of this mission. Okay, I have an iPad mini. I don't see the jelly scroll. I keep looking for the jelly scroll. What's the story with the jelly scroll?
You have to know how to do it.
You have to know how to do it. Well, then it's not that bad.
Well, so it's like Jesus. If you open your heart to the jelly scroll, he will come to you. So your heart is closed to jelly scroll.
So here I am on Reddit. I'm trying. I don't know. Can you see my jelly scroll? It sounds like
the display refreshes from top to bottom, but Apple changed the angle of the refresh on the iPad mini compared to the previous iPad mini. So if you're doing it perpendicular to the refresh,
so
sometimes you need like a slow motion.
It's worse? Which is worse?
I think in landscape this year,
iFixit said that because of the orientation of the appropriate sensor, it's more noticeable in portrait than in landscape. But also, but the consensus is that maybe you'll see it, maybe you won't. It really depends on it. Doesn't appear to be a defect. It's just something that happens with all LCD screens.
I've seen it on other LCDs. It never bothered me. I don't.
You can do it on OLED as well. Like people were posting it on. I think Dieter posted it on the OLED iPhone as well.
It is one of those things. I guess if you see it, then you can't unsee it. Maybe is that the problem? So don't try to see it. Is it fixable?
No, it's just the way a panel refreshes.
Oh. Okay.
Right. Again, it's inherent in the system, so to speak. And this is as soon as I was reading about this, I was thinking that this is one of the drawbacks of Apple always making such great products, because every time there's something that doesn't seem absolutely perfect, the first thought is that this must be a defect that Apple has to correct, as opposed to this is just the technology, the limitations of the technology, and that we don't. The fact that we don't consider this a defect and no, we won't be replacing your iPad because of it doesn't mean that we're covering our tracks. It means that do you want a plasma display?
Yeah,
you're scrolling it wrong. Exactly.
How about liquid paper? Do you want liquid paper? That would solve the problem as well.
I almost took this personally because I really love the new iPad mini. I just really, it's adorbs. It's the right size. It's
totes adorbs.
It's totes adorbs. And so I took it personally, like, it does not have jelly scroll.
Did you yode it? Did you almost yode it?
I almost yoded it. Hey, good on you, Apple. They've put the button back. I think they kind of had to in the App Store to report scams.
Yeah,
this was for a while. It was ridiculous. For a long time, you had to go. It would take you. You would take you out of the site. You go out of the App Store. You'd go to a web page, and then when you finally got there, there wasn't any clear, this is a scam. It was report suspicious activity, record a quality issue, request a refund, or find my content. And if you went to the only obvious one, report suspicious activity, then you get redirected to Apple support. And you could only do this if you'd fallen for the scam. You have to pay for it first. So that's ridiculous. So now, according to The Verge, it seems like every free app with in-app purchases appears to offer the report a problem button. You will get kicked out to a website. You will need to sign in, but at least you'll be able to say, hey, this thing looks like a scam.
Yeah. I really do think that this is part of the blowback from the Epic lawsuit, where they were forced to turn over so much information of internal documents about how they run the App Store that was contrary to all of their defenses of why the App Store is wholly imperfect and they're just out to create the best experience for users. It was the idea of reporting a scam app. Reporting a bad experience with an app seems to be integral to the problem of creating a good experience for users. And it also seems, though, as if with this extra information, the reason why they didn't make that easy to find is because you need a human being to actually process these things. And the App Store, as we discovered, is just woefully under human powered.
Yeah, and of course, we talked last week about Costa Eleftheriou's problems with his keyboard flick type.
Yeah.
He's kind of made himself, and this may have something to do with why Apple doesn't like him, the scam reporter, and he's found lots of ridiculous scams on the App
bless
Store.
him.
Bless him. And I have to think he may also have something to do with this, his tweet. In a major reversal, Apple quietly added back the report of problem App Store button in iOS 15. So, pat on the back, Apple. You did the right thing.
We're glad to see that they did the right thing. I wish that they would be more public about here's a change we made and why it was necessary.
Why did they take it out?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it also gives you confidence that they are aware of problems, they are addressing them, as opposed to, okay, look, if you guys are going to try to dunk on us about this, we will make it more visible and more accessible. But we're not going to pretend as though we had to do this. That we're motivated to fix these things. So openness. I know the big company, that Apple can't be as open as I'm sure even they would like. However, you have to inspire confidence in your customers, and this is an opportunity to inspire confidence that they didn't decide to take.
And I think they absolutely have to do it. I think that they absolutely have to do what they're doing. I think that the challenge is always that when you don't require people to buy it, you can end up with people gaming that system by something they don't like. And YouTube has this problem where a group of people will decide they don't like a certain person, and they'll all report them at the same time. And I've had friends, like literally friends of mine, lose their account for weeks, because just a bunch of people ganged up on them. And so now one of the advantages. That's an
automated system, and Apple is a $2.5 trillion company. They can have humans look at it.
Right. But it'll back up. So it doesn't. Anyway. So I
guess there's just not enough humans in the world to.
No, it's not. So here's the thing: it's not a number of humans. Like in that article, the idiotic number in there is that, well, Apple has only 500, and these people have 10,000, these people have 20,000. The skill set for those are completely different. Right. Like completely different. It is the dumbest, stat that I've seen in all these articles is people talking about the number, because the skill set that is required to do what Apple's doing versus someone at Facebook deciding whether someone swore or not. And so it's just a completely different number. And I don't know if it's exactly 500 or whatever. And yes, you can get more, but it's not like there's 7 billion people and you could have any of them. It is, they have to understand what they're looking at, and it does take time, to do this, and anyway, but the issue is that it'll either back up, it'll be the same problem that everyone else has, it'll back up and there'll be tons of people say, why haven't they acted quickly? Or they'll start doing things like YouTube, which is they'll turn it off quick, and then suddenly, someone loses their app and then they get upset. And so there's, I think that's why they took it out, was just the workflow. And now I think that one of the
actually, you've made a strong argument. That's a good point. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so the thing is, skilled labor is not unlimited.
Right.
Like I think that we need to stop thinking that. People who are skilled at doing something is not an unlimited resource. It's why I work in these companies. I worked with these companies. I know how hard it is for them to hire people. And the thing is that's why all those kids can code and coding and grow with Google. The reason that all of those exist and the reason that they're spending billions on that is because the skill sets are not unlimited, and the schools are not producing what they need. And they're literally they want to get down to when they're 10 years old because they're trying to, they don't care about college anymore. They just want more people. So there's this huge sucking sound right now of people trying to find, the skill sets that are required. So we can't keep on saying that they could just hire more people, because it's not true. It's simply it's an invalid argument.
There's also there's also an issue that I've talked to people at Apple and Google and YouTube because I wanted a well-rounded view on this, and they have the same arguments that we have, because of course they do. And one of the biggest right now is just like it's not a dumb thing, but like the unlike button on YouTube. Most social networks don't have a dislike button. YouTube does, and there's a huge argument about whether they should keep it or not. And it turns out most straight white males really want YouTube to keep it because it's how they judge whether a video is bad or not. But non-straight white people hate it because they get brigaded, they have like mobs, and they've traced where these things start on other platforms and in discussion communities. And they get exactly what happened with Alex. And it's not just the human factor. I mean, we heard Facebook talking about it's impossible for them to get enough people to manage their network yesterday. But it's that these are huge issues that don't have clear-cut answers. You have to make hard choices. And on one side, more people get flagged. And on the other side, more scams get in. And you can adjust that middle a little bit. But there's that scale is so huge that you can never get it exactly right. And I think one of the issues Apple had is that it was not a very sophisticated report a problem system. If you report a problem on other social networks like YouTube or something, you have to dive through like 2 or 3 layers of menus, which deters some people from reporting it, but also deters a lot of people from brigading it. It becomes much more work to use it maliciously. And I think Apple needed to have a more sophisticated system than just put the button back in. And unfortunately, I think they decided to just put the button back in at this point.
Well, you do have to at least log in.
And that's important because
why is it problematic? What's the reason?
Yeah.
What they can also build, one of the big advantages that Apple has over some of the other formats is that you generally you don't have lots of accounts with Apple, and so people brigading can only brigade for.
That's right. As long as it's tied to your Apple account, I think that's
Apple can just say we're just going to stop. We're just going to stop listening.
But
to you.
But they bot for reviews. I mean, it happens. We've seen the review bots fight like thousands and thousands of review bots, so they get in.
Yeah, it happens.
And they have brigaded. Like we had instances where competing apps, the same ones that use those bots for reviews, attack other people's apps with their little bot armies, because that's why we can't have nice things.
We were talking about accessibility. This actually, I got a number of calls on the radio show over the last few weeks. iOS 15 has taken away some key Siri functionality that blind people, for instance, used. I had a caller say, my wife, who's blind, used to say, Siri, read my mail, and it doesn't work anymore.
I really think that there's some kind of bug here.
It's got to be a bug.
Apple is so committed to accessibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like there was a bunch of stuff that went away that just came back. Like a year ago, you could say, Yo Jimbo, play Avengers Endgame on my Apple TV, and it would do it. And then for a year it stopped, and then now it's like it's come back. And I think my hope is that they are migrating everything to a much more reliable system, because it actually works now. And that a lot of these features will come back. But if there's one community you have to be overly communicative to, it's the
and they just took it out. Do I have any voicemails? Play my voicemail messages. Check my call history. Check my recent calls. Who called me? Send an email. Because this is terrible. I mean, people are calling upset.
Abandonment issues. Because they always think that they're going to be the first ones cut, and they every time there's a release, they panic and think that things are going to be taken away for all these, and they have to be reassured not in a patronizing way, but it's just like they through history they have been the last people on the list and the first people to be rejected, and anytime a feature is gone, they suffer disproportionately for it. So again, like you have to talk to them.
I had a caller whose wife used Siri to get an Uber. And you can't do that anymore. He said, it was nice because she could say the address she was going to, and it would be part of the Uber request, which, of course, you need to do. She can't really do it very well directly onto an iPhone. My only answer at this point was you can make a shortcut, because shortcuts will do that. But I hope Apple fixes this. I hope this is
and fast.
Fast. It's an oversight. But there are a lot of people who are very discommoded by this right now.
Renee is right on the money. There are no small there are no inconveniences when it comes to reducing accessibility. When you have something that was a feature and is now no longer a feature, it's not now I got to unlock my Face ID doesn't work anymore, and now I'm going to have to unlock it by typing my password. That's an inconvenience for me. However, accessibility features means this is something I can do with this phone, and now this is something I cannot do with this phone. And the fact that this is something that everybody else can do with this phone means that this is not something that is optional by any means. That we can't. There's a fairly recent attitude that accessibility is just something that every user is entitled to. It's not. So, aren't we nice that we're making these considerations as we're developing we're finding ways to make this product more accessible, or isn't it nice that we're finding a way that we can make this sidewalk easier to traverse? It's like, no, it isn't nice. You are supposed to do this. This is supposed to be a consideration from the very, very first time you put pen to paper about this. And so, yeah, that's why this is is a non-trivial thing. Apple shouldn't be. It's not as though I agree with the perception that there is a technical reason why they did this. Apple does such really wonderful work with accessibility. They would not have taken it out unless there was a long argument about why they had to.
Or it's a bug, but it doesn't seem like a bug.
Again, why or for that reason. But this is why they have to be open about we've taken this out. We can't tell you why we've taken this out, but we are replacing it with something that works better for a whole bunch of reasons that unfortunately we can't discuss yet. There are so many people who work in accessibility that you cannot assume that something was taken out because it's being moved to another library or because there was a bug that has to be done. It could be that they decided that there was only 3 people who were advocating for people who need accessibility features, and 2 of them left for other companies, and so now that's a voice they no longer have inside the room. So yeah, it's important to have this line of communication.
At least one person in Apple's Viz forum said that he had communicated with Apple. They said, we're aware of the problem and we're working on it, so let's hope they fix it quickly. There is a bug. It's probably not going to hit you, but you should be aware of it. If you use Apple Pay's Express Transit feature, do not use a Visa card. Researchers have demonstrated an attack using a contactless Visa payment from a locked iPhone of 1,000 pounds. They said that the payment terminal and they, by the way, you use an Android phone to do this attack, do not need to be near the victim's iPhone as long as there's an internet connection. Apple told the BBC the matter was an issue with the Visa credit card system, but Visa does not believe this kind of fraud is likely to take place in the real world, given the multiple layers of security in place. And of course, Visa says in the unlikely event that an unauthorized payment does occur, you're protected by Visa's zero liability policy.
When you said that, Leo, when you said that, I thought you were going to talk about Safari tabs. So I got ready for a complete.
Oh, get ready for Safari tabs. John Gruber did a great takedown on Safari tabs on Daring Fireball.
So does the Human Interface Guide. So does Apple's Human Interface Guidelines.
His chief complaint seems to be, and by the way, you can turn this off, but it's the default.
Some of it you can turn off.
One of the things the tabs do is they absorb the color of the site you're on, so it's no longer clear by looking at the tabs which tab is active.
They look like fields. I can kind of type into them.
Yeah, and controls that are part of Safari appear to be part of the web page now because everything is the color of the web page you're on. Bad design.
And the closed tab button is the fave icon. Like, it's the first time in history an icon has been destructive. But the worst part is, like, this isn't even, like, this was shown off as part of Monterey, but they've shipped the new version of Safari. Like, I'm not running Monterey on this computer. It's a production computer. I still have the new Safari now, and I've been using it. I always give myself time. Like, am I change averse? Am I just set in my ways? If I give myself like a week, a month, am I going to get used to it? I've been using it on the Monterey beta for 3 months, and I'm still making mistakes with something that's a web interface that Spry, like Mosaic solved 30 years ago.
So Gruber says, you're going to want to choose not the compact, but you're also layout, but you're also going to uncheck this show color in tab bar. I don't know. Mess with it till you get it the way you want it.
But it doesn't turn them back into tabs. They still look like fields and I keep going. Like, why can't I call? Oh, I'm in the.
It does look like a field. Yeah. Here's his example. Yeah. And in fact, here's an example. So he's on 2 different pages. It turns gray when he's on Daring Fireball, and it's red when it's on Defector.
And which one is active?
Furthermore, he points out, see that little grid there? That's part of Safari's. Part of Safari's controls. That. But it looks like it's part of the Defector website because that's cray. So anyway, he says turn compact tab layer. Well, I don't know. You figure out what you like.
And there are some people who are yelling at us, like some people who are yelling and saying, well, I happen to like it better. And the only thing I'll argue is subjectively, you can like the looks of anything better. Like, that's a completely subjective thing. You can totally like it. Objectively, it violates Apple's own human interface guidelines. And objectively, the basic design tenets like state change or non-destructive acts, like things that are like the core principles of design are violated by this. So objectively, it is bad, regardless of whether you subjectively like it.
So there.
Yeah, there's the airplane principle of engineering that someone taught me years ago that has informed so many other things, that there's a reason why all airplanes look alike. It's not because of lack of innovation. It's because when you make something that does not look like an airplane, that's supposed to fly like an airplane, it tends to crash. So that doesn't mean there's no room for doing things differently, but saying that, okay, so you are you need to lock this person into a room with an investigator, saying, okay, so the entire world of user interface designers and internet experts and users have decided that this is where the tab bar goes. You've decided that all those people are wrong, and it should go down here. Now, we're going to order in Chinese food, and we're not leaving this room until you convince me why you're right and everybody else is wrong.
There is a Safari 15.1 beta out now. Have you played with it, Renee? Does it fix this problem, or no? Is this also in the beta?
I have the WebKit nightlies. I don't know if they're still nightly. I don't check every day. I have the WebKit out there, and I haven't noticed a change if there is one. Yeah, there might be. I haven't checked in a couple of days, but it might be.
As Compy386 says in the chat room, new Safari looks cooler, but does not work better.
Yes.
Well, it's this problem that Apple has. Like, I think there's a lot of good things that came from iOS 7 and the Alan Dye era of human interface design. But he's a graphic designer by background. He replaced Greg Christie, who was of the Scott Forstall, Steve Jobs era, who was a very crunchy sort of traditional computer UI person. But over the last few years, there's been this trend of mistaking minimalism for simplicity, where simplicity does not involve minimalism at all. Sometimes minimalist things are way more complicated, way more difficult than simplicity, or mistaking like minimalism for elegance. These things are not the same, and you can't just remove things. Like you can remove, like Maya Angelou says, you remove as much as possible, but not too much. And we've gone way past the too much line. Someone just careened right over it.
John Gruber even quotes Steve Jobs, who said, "Design is not how it looks, it's how it works." Yeah. And looks comes second. So form follows function. Apple is a bigger player in the video game industry than Microsoft, Nintendo, Activision, and Sony combined.
Don't tell Tim Epic. Don't tell Tim Epic. He'll go back to court so fast.
It's about games. The App Store, which takes 30% of sales, as you know, gives Apple $8.5 billion per year in profit. That's more than all those other companies, Sony and Microsoft, are the big and Nintendo, big console companies, throw in Activision, the big game company, combined.
And we should note that that's
Android is number 2.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah.
Because I would suspect that because they get 30% of income. Yeah, right. That's true. But they get 30% of Android games too. It's a huge business.
And Sony gets 30%, and Microsoft gets 30%. Like they're all taking 30%. So
but they don't have the scale. There's a billion iPhones out there. So it's a billion potential gamers.
Microsoft's percentage on their App Store, and this is totally as a way of going, see, Apple, is 1%. And it's totally
nobody's making apps,
right? It doesn't matter. It costs them nothing, but it's a shot at Apple. You know, they make a big point about that. So wow, that's
why revenue per user is a lot more interesting a statistic than cumulatively how much money are you making, because it comes down to does everybody who plays games on an iPhone tend to spend a good amount of money to enhance their experience, or is the iPhone just really, really good at taking money away from people the moment they have an impulse to spend it? That sort of stuff. How many members of the user community are responsible for what percentage of that income? But yeah, as Renee says, the fact that you've got it's scale. The fact that you've got 1 billion game consoles compared to how many game consoles are Xboxes, how many game consoles are Nintendo Switches, that tells the tale.
And it also makes sense. It shows you why they went through so much trouble to create Apple Arcade. So it's it's a slow burn, but
don't buy another device. Stay on this device. There's so much involved in that action.
Yeah.
Well, it allows them to take risks or build the kinds of games, or they can build a larger tapestry of what they want.
Well, and really revenue per user and the growth of Apple's services is really the real story here. I read a funny article in the Observer, State of the Streamer. Apple TV Plus why it's not necessarily competing with Netflix. The guy observes that it's really all about more subscribers builds revenue in Apple services. It's
value add for Apple One.
Yeah. Apple TV's content budget is about $6.5 billion compared to $17 billion for Netflix. Amazon Prime Video, $9 billion.
Well, what's insane is that $6.5 billion is like I'm just testing the water.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money. You know, like it's
very competitive.
A lot of money on that.
How much do you think they spend on Foundation? Is that expensive, or is it all CGI and so it's not so expensive?
It's my guess is 30 to 50. My guess is $30 to $50 million an episode.
An episode.
Mm-hmm.
Wow!
Holy cow!
That's more than Friends.
Oh yeah, it's more than and you know the morning show or whatever was I think 15 million. We knew that. I mean I think someone figured that out.
That all went to Aniston and Witherspoon. That was all salary.
And yet, and by the way, there's a big strike coming. I suspect in the movie industry because IATSE is about to. Well, they're negotiating, but they voted to strike, so they could strike at any moment. That which would shut down TV productions and movie productions all over the country,
which we wouldn't feel for a year. Yeah, I mean, like it's
next year.
What's being shot now is coming out next year. So.
But Apple kind of gets off the hook there because they say, well, we only have 20 million subscribers, so we're not in the top tier of streamers, so they don't actually have to pay IATSE employees as much.
Well, I don't think they have either. Like they use the morning show is made, I believe, by Warner. Like I think all of the stuff is studio stuff that they're buying. I don't know if Apple's producing that much on their own yet.
The streaming contracts are going to be a big part of this IATSE negotiation.
Well, that is the big fight. I think
just basic treatment.
Well, they mentioned treatment and everything, but I think the bottom line is
their salaries are like. But when you look at like the salaries and just the callousness with which they're treated, like that was a shocking thing for me. It's like, oh, you would work 16 hours, drive. Oh, he died. He had an accident. He drove home.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. You're like it's just like the treatment of those people who are so important in the industry was appalling. Like beyond for billion-dollar companies, it was beyond appalling.
Well, and it's Alex. You probably know better than anybody, Alex. But it's grips. It's kind of the lower level employees who really get shafted by this, right?
Well, a lot of them are. I mean, I think that in general, it's actually much better in the United States than other countries I've worked, but not as good as some.
Right.
Like for instance, Germany is probably the most structured. Where we had someone. We said, what happens after? I think it was. I can't remember the number, but I think it was after 10 hours. Well, it's overtime. I said, what happens after 12? Like expecting double time or whatever. They goes, oh, that's illegal. Like you're not allowed to work more than that. like you're literally, I can't remember whether it was 10 or 12 hours, but at 10 or 12 hours in Germany, you literally, we had a truck pull in to drop stuff off and they didn't unload it fast enough. And that truck driver wasn't,
it's 10 hours, it's over. Sorry.
Was not allowed to come back and move the truck.
You have to go to bed
even for a minute.
See you tomorrow. I think that's good. I don't think that's a problem.
No, they did it because people were falling asleep on the way home. No, that was
that's right.
Why they created it.
Para Analytics has a chart, kind of interesting chart about demand. This is demand distribution of all shows in the United States in the last 90 days. This is average.
It's all Squid Game, Leo. It's all Squid Game.
Yeah, you're going to have to tell me about Squid Game because I'm hearing that's like the hottest thing right now. In fact, it's so big in South Korea that the ISPs are demanding money from Netflix, saying, you're using all our bandwidth. Ted Lasso, by a large margin, is the most rated by viewers, highly rated Apple show. Then For All Mankind, Mythic Quest, Schmigadoon, Sea and Servant, and The Morning Show, Mosquito Coast, all in the outstanding category, which is a tough category to get in. 7 outstanding shows, 2 good shows in the top 10, which is a big jump.
I think even with the reduced cursing in Morning Show this season.
Oh, thank God. I felt like they were just trying to show that they were edgy by putting the F word in every 5 seconds.
Yeah. I think that the hard part is I got all excited because as a parent, I was always like, what can I watch with my kids? Because it's the only time I have to watch. And when Apple first came out with Apple TV, I was like, well, nothing. I can't watch anything.
Ted Lasso solved that, right?
And so Foundation is something we've all started to watch. And
yes.
Well, Peanuts is good news. Peanuts is coming. The Peanuts Holiday Special. It's going to be the first original one in how many years, Andy?
Yep.
It'll be for New Year's. There's never been a Peanuts New Year's holiday
We
special.
got Christmas and Halloween covered.
Right? I guess they had to find a new holiday.
They have Arbor Day. There's an Arbor Day.
I'm looking forward to the Martin Luther King Day Peanuts holiday special. So the
just like
New Year's.
I just think Peanuts is Curb Your Enthusiasm for kids. I mean, like,
it is, isn't it? That's good.
It is. It's just Curb Your Enthusiasm for kids.
Very apt. It'll be called For Old Lang Syne, in which the Peanuts gang will try and throw the best New Year's Eve party ever.
Until Lucy pulls it away at the last second.
It, by the way, will be the first time a Peanuts TV special in the franchise does not feature Charlie Brown or Snoopy in the title.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
Yep. It's. I think that Apple has proven to be a really good conservator of the Peanuts brand. They haven't tried to make it more marketable. They haven't done. Let's just say they haven't done to the Peanuts characters what Disney did to the Muppets, which is you have no idea why these are just like licensed characters to you. They're hand puppets. You can cast in anything.
I'm seeing them in ads now. It makes me really angry, to be honest with you.
I do think that to Andy's point, what Apple's working on, I think very slowly, what it feels like is trust. You know, that if I see something on Apple TV that looks like it might be interesting, I'm pretty sure that it's going to be at least well done. You know, it's going to be well written, well shot. The quality is going to be really, really high. Yeah. It's often a little over the top on the, making a positive change sometimes for me.
I always feel Apple's thumb on the scale on all of them, and I think that's not good.
It's just kind of like homes. I like architecture, so I like homes, but all of them were all about sustainability, which is fine. It's just that it doesn't. I was just kind of like, okay, I just wanted to watch some great architecture, but I will say that like Tiny World is amazing. Watch the Music with Mark Ronson was really good. I wouldn't say amazing, but really good. Foundation is just eye candy. I mean, it's just incredible to watch.
Are we liking it? We've had 3 episodes now. What's the verdict?
My wife doesn't like it, but all the rest of us do.
My wife doesn't like it either. Actually, she doesn't.
I've been
dislike
too afraid
it.
to watch, to be honest with you.
Yeah. No, it doesn't hurt.
Like Dune, I have such strong feelings about it.
It's not. The good news is Foundation is so different from the novels that you won't really feel any disconnect. It's just a kind of related.
Georgia told me the first one was great, the second one wasn't great, and the third one was pretty good. That's the review I got from her so far.
All right. Good news if you're Charlie.
Can I just offer one correction? There was a Charlie Brown New Year's special in 1986. I thought I remembered it because I remember the plot line where Charlie Brown has to write a book report on War and Peace over Christmas vacation, and that's why. So yes.
Are you making this up? You're making this up.
He's making this up. 1986. There's only one major distraction on Charlie Brown's mind: the big New Year's party all of his friends are attending, with Peppermint Patty continuously convincing him to attend. Charlie tries inviting the object of his desires, the little redhead girl, but gets his hand caught in the mail slot. That sounds like a Bill Melendez, Charles Schultz jam.
Curb your enthusiasm for kids.
No, you're right. It is. Now that you've said that, I'll never see it the same way again. They are going to do the same thing this year. Thank you, Apple, that they did last year. They will partner with PBS, so there will be a free television viewing of It's a Great Pumpkin. Will be on October 24th. Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, November 21st. Charlie Brown Christmas, December 19th. So I'm really glad they're preserving that broadcast tradition. Yeah, you don't have to subscribe to Apple to see it. And nowadays, all you need to do is air it once. Everybody can TiVo it or whatever people do.
Yeah, it's still that television moment. I love the fact they ran the numbers and said, how much is it going to cost for us to just let PBS air it once on a scheduled time? And and most people will still want to watch it on demand whenever they want to, and for that they'll come to Apple TV Plus. That was such a good, smart decision, as opposed to, again, I hate to be a Disney basher. Actually, I do enjoy it, but I don't want to be seen as one. But yeah, it's like, why we are in the business of selling things. We are not in the business of giving things away.
This is purely rumor, but apparently there's a big bidding war going on for the NFL's Sunday night games, the Sunday ticket, which is not the Sunday night games. Amazon was deemed to be the lead contender. Disney's of ESPN, of course, is interested, but apparently the NFL likes Apple.
Wow, has more money. and they'll do a better job. Like typically they'll push harder, and they'll. I think that Amazon actually has done a pretty good job. They started on Thursday nights, a little rough, but Amazon's done a pretty good job of.
They were rough on Thursday night.
4K stream.
Their announcers on the first Thursday nights were not so good.
But losing teams can't use iPhones, right? Is that how it's going to go?
That's right. And you have to throw those surfaces. DirecTV currently pays at $1.5 billion a year. That goes through the end of next season, so 2022. And apparently AT&T is not interested because the NFL is now saying we want $2 billion a year.
And this is like noise for Apple. So if Apple wants to, it'd be very hard.
But remember,
for
they only
else
spent $6.5 billion on all the other stuff.
But the difference
another Apple TV
is if you want to press live, which Apple hasn't done, with what they're doing.
That's the way to do it.
That's the way to, football in the United States is the way to do it.
There's nothing. I think live is dying. What else do you want to watch live? News and football.
And interactivity. That's it. Those are the three. Yeah. If you're going to interact with the audience, or if you're going to have.
Well, that's why we do our shows live. Yeah. So I guess the voice. I don't even think those.
I don't know. When we do stuff where we're really interacting, there's a whole kind of content that we've seen the beginnings of where the audience is actually affecting the show. So think about the audience affecting the football game at the stadium. We've done shows where the audience is affecting how the show progresses, and we have 150,000 people pushing the levers. That might be another
reason the NFL's interested in Apple, because couldn't they do some interesting things with interactivity?
With devices, with
billion pockets,
Yeah, there's a lot. Apple, the ecosystem that Apple's building slowly. I don't know if they're going to do anything with it. I know what I would do with it. I would tie all those things together. I would have content that had games, that had interactivity, that had live streaming, that that there's so many places that if you own all the pieces, no one else does that. Where they own all the pieces of that puzzle. If you own all the pieces of that puzzle, there's a lot more that you can do than we haven't seen before. And you don't have to activate it anytime soon, but you could flip a switch and really create an entirely different kind of interaction and content than what we're doing now.
Last story before our picks of the week, so get those ready. I hope this is not somebody's pick of the week, but I will mention that Filmic Pro has announced they are going to support ProRes on the iPhone 13 and 13 Pro Max.
It was my pick, but I'm happy to run with it now.
Was it?
Yep.
Forget I said anything. Let's take a break. And I was looking at the picks. I didn't see it. Oh, you didn't have it. That's why. Damn, I'm sorry. All right.
It should be in there, but I'm having connection problems with Google right now.
We'll pretend you didn't hear that. Our show today, we'll take a break, come back. I was afraid it might be. We'll come back in just a moment with our picks of the week. Our show today brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Actually, a lot of our staff is brought to us by ZipRecruiter. We love hiring through ZipRecruiter. Look, there are some things in life you like to pick out by yourself. Your favorite mattress, your favorite bottle of wine, your favorite cut of steak. Wouldn't it be nice if you could do the same thing for hiring? That's where ZipRecruiter's Invite to Apply feature comes in. It lets you pick your favorites from top candidates. Right now, you could try ZipRecruiter free at ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. It's really cool. When you post on ZipRecruiter, you're immediately posting to 100-plus job boards, social media, everywhere. You're spreading your net wide. But then ZipRecruiter does something no one else does. It's brilliant. They look at the resumes they have on file, and they see if there's matches, and then they let you know. They say, look, we've got 25 people here who might be a good match, and then they let you invite those people to apply. That is amazing. They actually send you the most qualified people for your job. You review the candidates, you invite your top choices, and it really works. In fact, people who get invited by the company they're applying to are much more likely to respond. This has become a big problem, by the way. You know, it's so competitive now. You want to have that little extra edge. Lauren Webb, who's SVP of Talent Acquisition for Mandula Health, raves about ZipRecruiter's Invite to Apply. She says, I love that feature because we have a much higher follow-through rate if I invite candidates. It's easy for me. It's easy for them. It shows your interest, and that really helps. ZipRecruiter's technology is so effective, and I will back this up because it's true for us. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. For us, it's been within the first hours. It's because I get to watch this from the sidelines as Lisa's posting, and I love the reaction. Oh, we got a good candidate. And she just gets so happy about this. See for yourself. Just go to the exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. You can actually try it for free. This is really the way to hire. The smart way to hire. ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. Thank you, ZipRecruiter, for the good job you do for us. All right, Renee Ritchie, I almost stole your thunder.
No, I'm sorry.
I wish
my Google Docs are not saving.
I wish there were some way I could shoot ProRes on my new iPhone 13 Pro.
This is hilarious to me because Apple hasn't announced it yet. Like they said, it's coming later, but all the technology is in there. The accelerators are in the silicon. So Filmic Pro just did it on their own, and they shipped it yesterday. And they're doing this is all 10-bit. It's all 422.
Look at
they're
this.
doing
It's
ProRes
beautiful.
Proxy at 170 megabits per second, ProRes LT at 360, ProRes 422 at 540, and ProRes HQ, just at the Alex Lindsay special, as we call it, at 735 megabits per second.
Wait a minute, 735 megabits per second. So that's roughly 735 megabytes every 10 seconds.
It turns out to be around the 6 gigabytes per minute that we. Yeah.
Holy cow! You better hope you got the terabyte phone. That's all I can say.
Well, he was talking about that in that video. He talks about it and says that he got to like in one day, got to about 700 gigabytes of ProRes on his terabyte iPhone.
Does it look good.
And then his next challenge was getting it off the iPhone afterwards, which wasn't speedy.
I'm not even,
but
I'm
it
watching
looks
this in 1080. Let me turn it up to 2160.
And a lot of people are theorizing that Apple's little cinema mode demo was actually done in ProRes because it looks way better than it has any right to look.
Wow.
But it's just Filmic Pro is pushing the limits again. And if you, I'm going to hand it off to Alex because he'll explain it way better than me. But if you want it now, it's there.
I've done a lot of shooting with Filmic Pro with the last version with HEVC with Apple ProRes. It's amazing, and so I think that it is the ProRes is just going to change. Here's all I'm going to say is that when you get a phone that has ProRes in it, you're going to look at home movies and all the other things that you shot before that as that was a little bit of a bummer. Like not everything. There's a lot of things that you can just shoot and post and it doesn't matter. But the thought that you could have something in your pocket that would capture ProRes, of especially things that might be important to you. Is pretty cool. And if you're a creator, it's now a must-have. I mean, and Apple has spent a lot of time paying attention to creators. If you're a creator and you want to do anything with your phone, the ProRes is kind of a game changer. As far as being able to a lot of, I wouldn't say all, but almost all of the creators that I've worked with in the last 5 years are using iPhones. Or using Apple products. They're using Final Cut. They're not the only ones that we see using something else are people who are trying to get a job somewhere. So they want to use Premiere, or they want to use something else. But when they're just working for themselves, we just run into an enormous number of folks that are using Final Cut, and they're using iPhones like TikTok. I mean, it was literally every person except for the ones that were getting paid to use Samsung. So anyway, so it's that this is a game changer for that. And so for creators, I think that are shooting with their phone already, being able to capture this content at this level, they don't care about the transfer time they'll just get the 1 terabyte like I got. So I was like, 1 terabyte. Thank you very much.
So this video, I should give credit to Michael Tobin. This video was shot by Michael Tobin using Filmic Pro. Must see. Really impressive.
So anyway,
it's one of those weird things where like people say people love to say like Apple doesn't innovate anymore. Apple hasn't innovated in years, and you can't fold an iPhone. And I'm more than that. I do want foldable stuff, but when you look at like everyday innovation, when you look at like what it takes at just like a silicon level to a camera stack to be able to get ProRes 422 HQ on a phone, it's astounding. It's stupefying to me the quality of the work that those teams are putting into these things these days.
And the pressure, I think we're just at the very beginning too, because I think right now it's still at a 709. So it's not doing HDR. I mean, I don't think it's doing HDR capture. I mean, the HQ is capable of it, so I'm not clear because I haven't.
I think Apple's version will.
My phone showed up at 11 o'clock, right when we were getting ready for the show. So I haven't gotten to go out and play with it yet. But with the HDR, you have really consumers able to shoot content that is often better than what a lot of other folks are shooting for work. So I think that's gonna
it's gonna really upgrade my TikToks. I can tell you that right now.
Well, you get used to the one thing I notice, and we've had people ask questions like, why does my video look so much better on my phone than what I'm seeing on TV? Well, they have a standard definition or standard dynamic range TV, and they have a phone and it's shooting and displaying back in HDR. And what happens is they just get used to it. And this will be the same thing that happens as we get used to 120 frames per second when that starts to really pick up speed. Is people are going to get used to watching stuff at 120 frames per second on their phone and on their iPad and other things like that, and potentially their Apple TV. They'll take their home movies that are 120 frames per second and they'll throw them up on their Apple TV, and they'll get used to that, and then they'll look back at other things and go, "Why is this so choppy?" So that's and that's what Apple's kind of pressing down. It's not just that it's great content, but having the entire pipeline, part of their ecosystem, means that they can keep on innovating and kind of pressing the whole industry forward.
And it's consistency. Like even Michael Fisher, who's Michael Fisher's a huge Android reviewer, loves Android, and there's a bunch of them. He'll say in his review, like, I don't like iPhones. They're not my thing, but I keep one in my pocket every day because that's what I have to shoot B-roll with, or people who are in social medias, because it's consistent. Like when you switch lenses, the color stays the same. When you go into dark or light areas, the video doesn't blow out. All these little tiny things that just make their lives as creators, to Alex's point, so much easier. And then Instagram barely works on anything, but it works fairly consistently on an iPhone. And the same thing, and the camera APIs, because all the iPhone cameras are the same. At the API abstracted level. You have access to Filmic and Focus and Halide and all these really good quality apps. So it's a very good platform for creators.
Kudos to the Filmic Pro folks for finding this and giving us access to it. That's amazing. 422 HQ. Wow. It's
pretty much the standard. I mean, Filmic has really gotten to the point where if you're looking for, I want to shoot something professional with and they've been doing it for a long time, but I want to shoot something professional with my phone, Filmic is the way to do that.
I guess so. Yeah. I already have Filmic Pro, so I'll get the upgrade and I'll be able to do it on my non-existent iPhone 13.
And I think that when Filmic adds log and log curves and HDR, typical HDR curves, I think that when it's able to capture vision or HLG and that kind of thing, or PQ, those things are going to be really much more interesting than where they are right now. This is just the first step, and I'm sure that they'll be able to take advantage of it as soon as they get access.
Alex, you want to do your pick as long as you're on the horn here?
Yeah, absolutely. This one, I kind of fell into this last week. I'm working on a project with a guy named Chris Fritchie in Texas, and we've been working really hard on getting USDZ to work. And USDZ is the 3D file format that you want to use if you want to bring it into motion. It's probably going to be the core format for AR on the Mac platform or Apple platform, all the Apple products eventually. And you can do little previews, and I don't have a great one to show you at the moment, but the hardest part is getting the textured files. So you can make them in Modo, or you can make them in Cinema 4D, or you can, build them in Blender, but getting them textured and looking nice and then being able to get them out to send to somebody has proven to be very painful. So, we just really we're at the bleeding edge, and we really couldn't quite figure out how to do it. And Chris he started using Adobe Substance, which I kept on going like, oh, I should use this. I should download this. I know some of the folks that that created it, and I was like, I felt guilty that I haven't used it and just I haven't needed it for a project. And he pulled it in, and we started using it, and it's kind of magical. From a texturing perspective, So what it does is it lets you bring in a 3D object, and you can find a lot of these 3D objects in, you can get some of them free in Thingiverse, and you can buy them, of course, on places like TurboSquid, and they'll come to you as OBJs typically, and you can bring them in and very quickly texture map them, and so the what it does is it lets you add all those surfaces. And the reason that I'm recommending it specifically is because it allows you to texture them really quickly, and then it allows you to export them as USDZ with all the different surface layers that you need. So being able to get this level of texture out of something and have it come in as USDZ, and literally you can text it to somebody, like text the geometry to somebody, and they can throw it in front of them. And this is the first application that I've seen that does this really easily and well. And builds all the maps that you would need to make this look good. And so the one problem is that we're challenged with is it makes really big maps if you want to. So you have to figure out how to, get them small enough that someone could show them on a phone. And I'll be able to show a little bit more of this in a couple of weeks when we're working on a project that I can't show just yet to do this. But we're literally animating all the 3D objects that we're creating. They're being built in a mixture of Modo and Cinema 4D, and then they're going through Substance, and then they go into Motion. And so we're literally using Motion as the 3D animation tool.
I can't believe how realistic this makes this look.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it's what they've really done well is they made it easy. So this is, from a 3D perspective, it's still probably a little bit of a lift for if you've never used 3D before, but they really are looking around designers, and having designers be able to very quickly add surfaces. And it really is as easy as they're showing there. You just start adding these bits and pieces to it, and you drag and drop them on. But this has been a big missing piece for us, and it's just the interface is very well done. And Substance was a company that Adobe bought a little while ago, and so I'm not usually, I have to admit, I've grown a little hesitant about the subscriptions that Adobe. I don't like the model that much, but this is one that I'm. I got the 30-day to test it this week, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to buy this because I'll use it all the time. And
if you had a full Creative Cloud subscription, you would have this.
I don't know if it's part of. I don't know if it's part of a separate Creative. In my account, it shows up as a separate thing. I think if you have the full one, it may come with it.
Yeah,
because you can buy these in sections.
So cool.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
And it's really they've done a really good job. Of putting these together, and so I should have played with it earlier, is what I'll say.
There's a lot of good examples.
But when I opened it, that's kind of why I wanted to kind of throw it up there of like, hey, some people should pay attention to this because it is, it's pretty nifty. Hold on, let me see if I think I might have this is one that I was playing with here. Let me see if I can pull this up.
These feel like they're actually, that's what makes the difference. These feel real.
So I'm going to cut to this.
Go ahead.
I just opened this in preview. Like this is just in Apple's preview.
Yeah.
And this couch, I paid.
Wait, preview will open up a 3D object like that and let
you USDZ file.
Oh my God, that's cool.
Yeah, this is in.
I had no idea.
And I could text.
Keep
this.
showing Alex.
There
you go.
Yeah. And I could probably text it to you, and it would just show up on your phone, and then you could place it somewhere.
Oh, that's wild.
So this is supported in the OS, and so
you've been singing the praises of this USDZ format for a while, but now it really comes home. If it's all supported by all of Apple's stuff.
Everything is supporting this model format, and and I put this into Substance and literally textured this in like 10 minutes.
Nice worn leather, looks much more real.
It's all just a shader that was built in. I didn't pay anything for it. I just grabbed it and dragged it on.
Yeah.
So here, you and you, and then that was it. And so it was like something I bought. It's a cheap model that I bought on TurboSquid, downloaded it, threw it into Substance, and this is just in preview, but I can put this also into Motion, and I can animate around it and do all the other things I want, or I can send it to you and say, this is the thing we were thinking about, and you can put it into your living room, and see if that's what you want, and so.
Can I get something in a brown with a little distressed, kind of like, looks like an old library leather sofa?
I could
or the Steve Jobs iPad
not
chair.
Live, but I could totally do it. Yeah, I'm still learning how to use it, but
that is really amazing, and the fact that preview just opens it.
Oh yeah, that's well, and not only that. When you think about the 3D
Keynote
models
and Pages and all that too,
they don't support that yet.
Oh,
we all think that.
Come on, man.
We all think that eventually that'll happen. But what's interesting is like in Motion, I could build like if I have an engine, I could build it so that it would pull apart. In Motion, I can animate all those bits and pieces, but then I can publish the controls for those to a little slider. So I can just, when I slide this open, it'll just open up like that. And then I can publish that as a generator to Final Cut. And so now in Final Cut, the editor doesn't need to know anything about 3D. They're like, I just want to do the exploding thing. And it just goes, and it'll just open up. That's what I'm working on right now for some other things that we're working on. And so the thing is that, and again, I can send that to you, with some code. You could also take that and, we could put that into something for education. When you think about education, when you think about how it impacts, corporate stuff, I have a product that I want to show you, and you can look at it right in front of you. And all of that stuff is being supported at the OS. The real problem, and the reason I'm talking about Substance, is because we just really had a hard time making the models look great. Like we could see what was possible, we just couldn't make them. Right. And Chris ran into this thing and started showing it. And so we're going to do it. We're going to talk. We're going to do second hours and office hours about it and get everybody kind of, trained up. As soon as I figure stuff out, I'm like, okay, I gotta go. I gotta go to office hours.
It's going to be 2 channels soon. 48 hours a day of office hours.
Yeah. But I think that we're going to do some labs and after hours, and then the second hour and office hours to do it. But it's a pipeline that I think is, I would highly recommend thinking very hard about learning how to do this right now, because this is going to be a really big industry. As we move forward, as soon as it's a little bit more widely available, and I think it's been a slow rollout, and this has been opening this up has been like this big piece of it, for us. And so, but I think that if someone's trying to figure out how to be hireable next year or the year after, it's not something that you can spend 40 hours a week on, but it'd be worth understanding how it works, because it's now gotten so easy. I mean, I've been doing 3D modeling since late 80s, late 88, 89. And it's just stunning, like where we're at, as far as how to do this.
Super cool.
Anyway, check it out.
Super cool. Substance, it's actually a bunch of different, 4 different programs. And
they've done just such a good job. I mean, it's not, even though it's new to Adobe, it is not, it's a very mature app. It's Sebastian, the guy who is the founder of Substance. That's who Algorithmic was the company that Adobe bought, and he's been doing that. He and I have known each other for 15 years. Like he's been working on this for a long time. So it's a very mature app. So it's really interesting. I would highly recommend downloading. It's 30-day demo. Just download it and play with it.
And by the way, the student and teacher price is a little bit more affordable. Yeah. So, that's for all apps. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it's, really.
It doesn't look like Substance. Oh, yeah, that's smart.
It might be separate.
It's separate. Sold separately.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Thank you. That's a really cool demo. Watch the video on the Substance page. That's really neat. Andy, what do you got for us?
Oh boy, was I happy when this was released. Logitech used to make my favorite mobile Bluetooth keyboard, the K811. And when someone can remember the model number that's that obscure, that it was my favorite travel keyboard, whether I'm going to be working for 3 hours at a coffee shop or working for 2 days just to go out and get a meeting, because there are a lot of really good cheap Bluetooth keyboards. There aren't a whole lot of them that are designed to be typed on thousands of words a day, day after day after day, and have all these creature comfort features. They discontinued it, which broke my heart a few months ago. I actually went on eBay and bought a couple of used ones, because you always have to have your favorite keyboard backups of it. But it looks like they're replacing it with this new one called the Logitech MX Keys Mini, which is it takes everything I liked about the K811, and they've upgraded it to their new keyboard switch design, which is easily the equal of any premium notebook. Probably better, unless it's the MacBook Pro, in which case it's better than that. We're talking about the 1.8 millimeters of travel, so big, comfortable travel. This is the sort of thing that, once again, it's not for bashing out a couple of emails. It's not for like navigating through apps. It really is for people who are going to be writing, using that keyboard day in and day out. While being small enough and lasting long enough on battery that you can toss it in a bag, so that I do have the keyboard cover for my iPad Pro. But when I leave the house with the intention that I have writing targets for the day, I will more likely just take my smart cover and this keyboard because it's going to be so much more comfortable. Built really, really well. In addition to the key switches being really nice, it's backlit. It will automatically sense when your hands are near, so it'll turn the lights on and off for you automatically. It has what I love about this, though, is that it carries over my favorite feature from the K811. You can pair it with up to 3 different devices simultaneously. So, like at the coffee shop, I might have my iPad in front of me, but I also have my phone next to it. In my office, I will have that and maybe a Windows laptop. I don't have to like switch and repair to switch between these two. All I have to do is if suddenly I'm getting text messages from someone and I need to have a conversation with them on my phone, all I have to do is press a dedicated button that's dedicated to the pairing of that phone. The pairing switches immediately to the pairing for that phone, and without any interruption whatsoever, I'm typing on that phone instead. So it's not cheap. It is $99, which is easily as much money as it's as much money as Apple's really, really cool, hey, aren't I fancy keyboard here, but it's much, much better. It's much easier to type on, has much more features. Although it's $70 more than their K380 keyboard, the K380 is the casual keyboard for people who just want a mobile keyboard for attached to a desktop PC or whatever. This is really designed for creatives, and it kind of reflects that. So I'm so excited about it because I actually don't have it yet. I ordered it 2 days ago, and I can't wait for it to come in. But
I hope you got the pink one. I'm just saying.
We call it salmon, but yes. That's the other nice thing. It's available. It knows that like it's available in pink, black, the graphite gray. So if those of you who like to be matchy with your hardware, will probably enjoy too. And it has some nice things too. It has double keys for so if you're switching between like a Windows machine and a Mac, it will have both sets of keys. It has you can tell that it was designed for 2021 because it has a dedicated key for emojis. It also has a dedicated microphone mute key so that you don't have to hunt to find it in Skype or meetings or whatever. It is a dedicated key that's mapped to the right thing. On and on and on. Just so much nice thought went into this. I know it's difficult for me to. I rarely recommend things that I haven't actually used yet, but I've had enough experience with the K811 that I know that I recognize everything that I like about this. And I have tried typing on this type of key switch before, and it is my favorite, like quiet, low profile notebook style keyboard switch. That I wish that Apple would hire away whoever it is at Logitech designed these keycaps, but Logitech is probably way too smart to let that person go away.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Andy. WGBH Boston this week.
Yes, Friday at 1:20 p.m. You can stream it live or later by going to WGBHnews.org.
Nice. Renee Ritchie, youtube.com/Renee Ritchie. What are you working on this week?
I posted my really long, really in-depth A15 Bionic deep dive.
Nice.
20 minutes of fun in silicon. And then I just posted an Apple October event or October-November event preview, a M1X Mac event preview, and what I'm hoping we get.
Oh, I hope it comes soon. Soon.
I know. I need it. I want it.
Soon. I thought
you gave me a fright. I saw the teaser for that in my YouTube subscriptions this morning. Like, oh, did Apple announce something? I didn't announce an event. I wasn't yet. Like, oh, it's just. I'm sure it's going to be great.
There were jerks on Twitter today. It was like, the event is announced. It's a Pixel. I'm like, dude. Oh.
So it's probably not next week. It's probably not this month. I'm going to bet it's in November, but we shall see.
Last week of October, first week of November.
Yeah,
sounds good.
Something like that. Yeah. I'll be gone. I'll be in Mexico.
Well, then it's for sure.
You guys have fun. Do it without me.
Laporte's leaving. Organize the event.
And of course, Alex Lindsay, officehours.global for this global phenomenon. What have you been working on this week?
Oh, well, it's busy. We actually today had a great, it was just what we call ruthless reviews for audio, where we literally just pick at everybody's audio. Like, God. I just hear a little hiss in the background. And, or your voice isn't quite as full as it could be with that mic, and so it's a really funny. But you learn a lot,
your system is so mature now that you're turning against each other. That's a rite of passage. In the community.
Well, it's like there's no one to really compete with when it comes to like how you look and sound over Zoom anymore. So we just have to keep playing against ourselves, and so that was a lot of fun today. We're talking about tomorrow. We're talking about an HTML based graphic system for broadcast. It's called SPX GC, and then Thursday. So we opened up. We recommended Keynote last week, and then we opened up and started playing with it as a group. And it was mind-blowing, the live video input. It wasn't like, oh, I can put a video next to it. It's a video is an object that can be treated like any other object in Keynote. So we're spending a whole hour on Thursday talking about that and how it works. Fun. And then we have a colorist, Charles Klein from New York, who's going to come in and talk about, we've been starting to color correct our cameras with LUTs. So using Resolve and in color correcting the cameras with charts and being able to, rather than using a switcher or using shading systems, we're just literally using a LUT to correct the cameras and match them to each other. So we're going to talk about how to do that. And then of course, on Saturday, not only are we talking about education, but we're making chai together. We're going to learn how to make chai from
that one.
Damayanti Gajar in South
chai.
Africa. She's going to teach us all how to make authentic chai, and we're going to do it all together over Zoom. So it's a very wide range, as always, in office hours. And then we've run out of time in office hours. So in after hours, we're now doing labs. So the next Thursday and Friday, we're doing labs on a program called Isadora, which I think I recommended a couple weeks ago, that is like this nodal brain that lets you take inputs and outputs, and we're running our switchers with it and all kinds of other stuff. But there's a lot of people that are watching us do it and want to figure out how to do it. So we're getting some pretty smart people together, and we're just going to spend an hour a couple times a week to get up to speed. So I'm always still amazed. 550 some episodes.
And you had Elmo Grandma got run over by a reindeer. So it really covers everything.
It goes. Exactly. Yeah. No,
Officehours.global. It's a phenomenon. That's all I can say. It's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Renee. We do Mac Break Week. Thank you for joining us. You can watch us do the show live at Mac Break Weekly. I guess the best place to go to twit.tv/live. There's live audio and video streams there. Tuesday morning, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. If you're watching live, chat live. There's two places to do that. Our free IRC, irc.twit.tv. And, of course, Club Twit members get access to our Discord. If you're not a member of Club Twit, $7 a month gets you ad-free versions of all of our shows. Our great Discord server 24/7. And the Twit Plus feed with content that doesn't make it into the other podcasts. For more information about Club Twit, go to twit.tv/ClubTwit. You're really going to want to be a member for this Friday. Steve Gibson's doing an AMA in Club Twit. That will be very interesting. So if you're a Steve Gibson fan, you may want to sign up quick. It's month to month. You could sign up just for a month and then quit. I think Steve's worth $7. After the fact, on-demand versions of all of our shows are available at twit.tv/ at the website, twit.tv. For this show, it's twit.tv/MBW. You can also see us on YouTube. There's a dedicated Mac Break Weekly YouTube channel. Best way to get the show, I guess, would be subscribe. That way you get it automatically the minute it's available, audio or video. Pick your favorite podcast client. If that client allows reviews, please leave us a 5-star review. That would sure be nice. That's it for Mac Break Weekly for this week. I'm Leo Laporte. And now, time to get back to work, because break time is over. Bye-bye.
Hey, you don't have to wait till the weekend to get the tech news you need. Join Jason Howell and myself, Micah Sargent, for Tech News Weekly, where we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news.